Welcome back. Life is full of twists that don't make sense at first glance, paradoxes that turn logic inside out. Think of the effort paradox, where trying harder often makes you worse, or the freedom paradox, where the more choices you have, the less free you feel. These puzzles aren't just clever ideas, they're forces that quietly shape how you live every day. Tonight, we'll explore many of them. So get comfortable, because this is going to be a long one. Have you ever tried to row across a lake while your oars are chained to the dock? You pull harder, your shoulders ache, the rope creaks, but the shoreline does not get closer. That is the effort paradox. Push too hard and you burn fuel faster than you move. Do too little and you never leave the shore. We grow up believing that more effort guarantees more progress. Then we meet the ceiling. The ceiling is not laziness or lack of will. It is biology, attention, and time. Muscles need recovery to grow. Brains need idle space to connect ideas. Even engines run hotter and slower when redlined. When you slam on the gas every day, you begin to confuse exhaustion with accomplishment. You end the day empty and call that evidence of progress, even if nothing meaningful moved. On the flip side, doing less can turn into drifting. You promise to start when you feel ready, to wait for the perfect plan, to avoid mistakes by avoiding movement. Days pass. The shore sits exactly where it was. So how do you move without melting? Think of effort like a spotlight, not a floodlight. A floodlight washes everything and blinds you. A spotlight isolates what matters. Choose one meaningful target at a time, something small enough that you can finish it, and important enough that finishing it matters. When you pick more than one, you pick none. The scattered path looks busy, but busy is the camouflage of stuck. Set a daily floor and a daily ceiling. The floor is the least you will do, even on a bad day, the small action that keeps you in motion. The ceiling is the most you will do, even on a great day, the boundary that protects you from sprinting into a wall. Write one paragraph, not a novel. Practice scales for a short session, not until your fingers hate the instrument. Stop early and you will want to return tomorrow. That craving is compound interest in human form. Protect recovery like it is part of the work, because it is. Sleep is strategy. Walks are strategy. Deep breathing is strategy. When you step away, you are not abandoning the task. You are letting your mind rearrange the puzzle pieces. How many great ideas arrive in the shower, on a quiet commute, during a boring chore? You do not force those moments, you make room for them. Seek leverage. If an hour of effort can be multiplied, find the lever. A template saves you future decisions. A checklist prevents repeated mistakes. A mentor compresses years into months. A tool automates the tedious so that your energy can climb higher rungs. Notice the difference between friction and fear. Friction is practical resistance. You can oil it. Lay out your shoes the night before. Clear your desk. Turn off alerts. Fear is the whisper that says you are not ready. You answer fear with tiny proof. One small win, then another, until momentum speaks louder than doubt. The paradox remains, but you are different inside it. Work with a steady flame instead of a wildfire. Do just enough today that tomorrow is easier. Move the shore by moving the boat, not by tearing your hands against the rope. Have you ever stood in front of a wall of cereal and felt your hunger turn into homework? You walked in wanting breakfast. You walked out with a head full of second guesses. That is the choice paradox. Sometimes, the more doors you can open, the less sure you are of the room you actually want. Here is what makes it so sneaky. Options feel like freedom. But past a point, they turn into pressure. Every yes now contains a dozen tiny no's, and your brain starts running those alternate timelines. You do not just imagine what you might gain. You imagine what you might be missing. Suddenly, good enough feels like giving up, and a simple pick becomes a referendum on your taste, your time, your identity. Take a small scene. You and a friend sit down to watch something. What do you want to watch? I do not know. You pick. You scroll. 10 minutes, 20. Trailers blur. The room gets quieter, not cozier. When you finally choose, the first scene plays and you are still thinking about the other options. Or think about shoes. You try on a pair that feels great, but you have seen 20 more in other tabs. You buy, then spend the walk home, replaying the ones you did not pick. The purchase is real. The satisfaction, not quite. Psychologically, when options multiply, so does anticipated regret, and the bar for satisfaction rises. We compare extremes. Imagine perfection, and then judge reality against a fantasy we stitched from all the best parts of everything we did not choose. That is why a small menu can feel like kindness, and a massive aisle can feel like a test. So what do? Do not chase the perfect choice. Design the choosing. Decide your values before you meet the options. If connection is the point, you pick the restaurant where you can hear each other, not the trendiest place in town. Set a rule of 3. Allow yourself 3 solid candidates, then stop searching. Use defaults for recurring decisions. The weekday breakfast, the go-to outfit, the short list of shows. Time box the hunt. Give yourself 2 songs worth of browsing and then commit. For bigger choices, write the 3 criteria that matter most, and the moment something meets them, you call it. Not more options, but better boundaries. Here is a counterintuitive truth. Constraints do not clip your wings. They give you lift. A ritual removes friction. A preset spares your willpower for the moments that really need it. A small, honest list of what matters pulls you out of comparison and back into experience. You stop auditioning imaginary lives and start living the one in front of you. We think saying yes to everything keeps doors open. In reality, it keeps us standing in the hallway. Choose your hallway. Choose your door. Then step through and let the other doors close without ceremony. Relief arrives when you stop trying to be everywhere at once and let yourself be fully here. Satisfaction is not a function of how many options you had. It is a function of how wholeheartedly you inhabit the one you picked. Curate your choices so you can actually enjoy your life. That is the paradox resolved. Less to pick from, more to feel, more to remember, more to love. Imagine waking to a sky with no horizon, just a spread of endless blue that gives you nowhere to land. That is what total freedom can quietly feel like. Not a celebration, but a weightless drift. When everything is possible, nothing feels chosen. The heart wants a direction, not an infinite shrug. You already know this in small ways. A blank weekend, free of plans, sometimes leaves you scrolling and snacking and wondering where the day went. But a weekend with a few anchors, a morning walk, a call with a friend, a dinner you promised to cook, feels oddly lighter. You moved less wildly, and somehow you moved more meaningfully. That is the freedom paradox. Limits that you choose can set you free. Consider a child in a yard. Without a fence, the rule is do not run. With a fence, the rule is run as much as you like. Boundaries do not always shrink our world. Sometimes they give us the safety to fill it. A river needs banks to be a river. Without them, it becomes a swamp. We face the swamp whenever our choices multiply beyond what our attention can hold. A closet crammed with every style somehow has nothing to wear. A streaming library with every movie makes it hard to pick one. The mind does not love a void, it loves a frame. And a frame is just a kind limit. So how do you make limits feel like liberation, not punishment? Start where your life leaks energy. If decision fatigue starts your mornings in a fog, lay out a tiny uniform for yourself. Maybe it is a few favourite outfits that rotate without a second thought. If your days blur into a reactive sprint, block the first quiet hour for deep work and guard it the way you guard a loved one's sleep. If your creativity feels scattered, choose a constraint. One theme, one tool, one page a day. Constraints ask less from your willpower and more from your rhythm. The point is not to shrink your life, it is to give your choices a shape that your nervous system can trust. Athletes train within drills so they can play freely. Musicians practice scales so their hands can improvise without panic. Lovers make vows so their hearts can relax into a bigger love. The limit is not a cage, it is a rehearsal space where freedom learns its lines. You do not need to design a prison of rules. Choose a few bright lines that reflect who you are becoming. A bedtime that respects tomorrow. A budget that tells your money what story it is allowed to tell. A boundary that keeps your phone out of your first waking hour. Each small limit becomes a promise that your best self will have a place to stand. Total freedom is not the absence of edges. It is the presence of meaningful edges that turn a blank expanse into a path. You can still wander, change your mind, redesign the fence as you grow. But give your days some banks and watch how your life gathers momentum. When you choose your limits on purpose, you do not lose your freedom. You finally feel it. The first time your success bites back, it feels like a compliment with teeth. You wanted momentum, then it arrived like a crowded train, and suddenly you're sprinting alongside, throwing your bag on as the doors start to close. That is the growth paradox. You do not get fewer problems when you succeed. You get better ones, louder ones that demand a wiser version of you. Think about it. You dream of a promotion, then win it, and overnight your to-do list becomes a to-decide list. The work shifts from tasks you can finish to choices that never stop echoing. Start a project and more people care, and that means more opinions, more expectations, more chances to disappoint. Even health works this way. You start exercising, feel great, and suddenly sleep, nutrition, recovery, and time management line up like dominoes. You have to keep standing. Success replaces simple problems with complex ones, small fires with controlled burns, quiet days with meaningful noise. That is not punishment, it is proof. The problems did not vanish. They graduated. Growth is trading ease for significance. It is swapping the frustration of not being seen for the responsibility of being seen clearly. It is moving from asking for opportunities to protecting the ones you have. It is realizing progress does not mean peace and quiet. It means strength to carry heavier weight without breaking. So how do you live with that without burning out? You choose your problems on purpose. Choose the problems that come with building, not hiding. Choose the problems that come from telling the truth, not from managing a lie. Choose the problems that scale your capacity, not your resentment, and then design your life around carrying them well. Boundaries are not walls, they are scaffolding. Rest is not a reward, it is part of the build. Delegation is not laziness. It is a promise to keep your best energy on the few things only you can do. Saying no is not scarcity. It is stewardship. If the trail just got steeper, good. It means you are higher on the mountain, where the air is thinner and the view is wider. The trick is not to ask for a flatter trail, but to learn the rhythm of climb, breathe, climb, breathe. Handle one conversation you used to avoid. Ship one draft you would have hidden. Give one clear no where you used to mumble a maybe. Raise the ceiling on your capacity by a sliver, then protect that gain like it matters, because it does. Here is the quiet truth. People who look calm at the top are not problem-free. They are problem-fluent. They still get interrupted, judged, and stretched. They have just accepted the exchange at the heart of growth. They pay attention with intention. They carry weight with rhythm. They know success multiplies the number of things that can go wrong, and they build systems so fewer of them actually do. Do not hunt for a path without problems. Pick the problems that are worth your life. If success brings the storm, become the kind of person who sails. I once ruined a birthday party by telling the truth about the cake. Everyone was smiling, nodding, pretending the frosting didn't taste like minty chalk, and then I said it out loud. The room shifted, eyes narrowed. Somewhere, a balloon gave up and sank to the floor. Later, the host pulled me aside and whispered, "Thank you. I thought I was going crazy." That's the twist. Truth can make people like you less in the moment, even as it makes them need you more in the long run. We grow up on slogans about honesty being the best policy, but no one mentions the fine print. Honesty is sandpaper. It takes off the rough edges, but it also heats up the surface. People don't usually dislike the truth because it is false. They dislike it because it is unflattering. Truth makes us rearrange our stories, and that is exhausting, so we defend the story and push away the messenger. Not forever, just until the sting fades and the usefulness of the message starts to glow. Here is where the real skill lives. Honesty that leaves bruises is laziness dressed up as courage. Honesty that builds people requires intention, timing, and care. Before you speak, check your motive. Are you trying to be right, or are you trying to be helpful? Then ask permission. A simple, "Do you want comfort or clarity?" can open a door without kicking it down. Own your perspective. From my view, beats "you always." Be specific. Vague truth feels like fog. It dampens everything and shows nothing. Offer a path forward. If there is no next step, you are not being honest, you are venting. There is also a difference between taste and truth. "I don't like this song" is a preference. "This data is wrong" is a reality check. People can handle your preferences when they trust your humility. They can handle your truth when they trust your care. Deliver praise in public and corrections in private. It keeps dignity intact. Keep it short. The longer you circle a hard truth, the more room you give fear to grow. You do not have to say every true thing you notice. Silence is not a lie when it is kindness. But silence cannot become a habit for avoiding discomfort. Make small deposits of truth often, the kind that help people steer before they crash. If you only speak up when the ship is sinking, your honesty will feel like a siren, not a compass. Short-term, truth costs you likes. Long-term, it earns you trust. The people who always make everyone feel comfortable are easy to love and easy to replace. The people who can be warm and clear at the same time become lighthouses. You may never get applause for telling someone their fly is down, or that their pitch needs work, or that their apology missed the point, but they will look for you the next time they want the ground to stop moving. Try this today. Choose one small, useful truth and say it kindly. Expect a wince, expect quiet, and then, a little later, expect respect. That is the honesty paradox, and it is worth the price. At a street fair, I slid my fingers into one of those little woven tubes, pulled hard, and felt it clamp down. I pulled harder. It tightened even more. The only way out was the opposite of what my anxious brain tried first. You ease in, not yank out. That's the control paradox. When you try to force things to move, you get stuck. When you create space, the grip loosens. People work the same way. Try to manage every detail, and you will watch energy vanish. Push, and you get pushback. Demand, and you get delay. The more you tighten the rules, the more people look for exits. What works is not surrendering standards. It is shifting your grip from control to clarity, from telling to inviting. Picture a manager who hovers over a project. Slack pings, check-ins, status updates every hour. The team member starts doing the minimum, they wait. They ask for permission for every small choice. The manager reads this as slacking and tightens more, the spiral continues. Now imagine the same manager saying, here is the outcome that matters. Here are the non-negotiables. How you get there is your call. What do you need from me? Ownership wakes up. Motivation follows. Because when someone feels seen and understood, they are more open to conversation and even change. Listening that aims to understand creates safety and lowers defenses, and people stop bracing and start participating. You see it at home too. A parent says, "You are not going out." End of story. The teenager argues, promises, negotiates, breaks. Curfew. Not because they hate the rule, but because their freedom feels under attack. The paradoxical move is to hold the boundary while inviting agency. Let's talk about what a safe night looks like. Here's the window I am comfortable with. What plan works for you inside that? No drama, just collaboration. The rule stays, the resistance drops. Or think about a friend who is late on a commitment. You could lecture, micromanage, send reminders every hour. Or you can be clear, simple and respectful. I care about finishing this by Friday. I trust your approach. What would help make it smoother? That tiny shift says, I see you as capable. It removes the fight for dignity and replaces it with a path to deliver. Psychologically, what is happening here is simple. Humans protect autonomy. When they sense it shrinking, they push back. But when they feel respected and understood, their nervous system settles and their mind reopens. That is why the soft skills are not soft at all. Clarity lowers confusion. Choice raises commitment. Curiosity invites problem solving. So trade control for structure. Set the destination, define the guardrails, then let people steer. Ask, what do you see that I am missing? Offer two real options, not disguised commands. Name the outcome and the why, and let the how belong to them. If they stumble, hold the standard and offer support, not a tighter leash. The result is not chaos, it is accountability without the static of power struggles. Back at the fair, I stopped yanking. I pressed my fingers in the weave, loosened, and I slipped free. Influence works like that. You do not overpower people. You give them room to move, and they move with you. The paradox is that the loosest hands often hold the most. I once tried to trap joy like a firefly in a jar, and the faster I chased it, the darker the field became. That is the strange thing about happiness. Sprint toward it, and it slips through the grass. Walk with a different purpose, and it drifts over your shoulder like a quiet companion. Chasing happiness makes the mind ask, am I happy yet? That question sounds harmless, but it pulls attention into constant checking, constant grading. The moment becomes a test, and tests rarely feel like freedom. It is like trying to fall asleep by ordering your body to relax. The command tightens the muscles it hopes to soften. Think about how joy appears when attention is elsewhere. A conversation gets so honest that time dissolves. Music fills a room, and without planning, a foot starts tapping. A small kindness lands, and something in the chest grows light. None of those moments were hunted. They were noticed in the middle of doing something that mattered. The paradox is simple. Happiness is a side effect of living in alignment, not the prize at the end of a chase. When we aim straight at the feeling, we turn life into a scoreboard. When we aim at meaning, connection, and curiosity, happiness follows like a shadow when we face the sun. So shift the target. Trade the question, "Am I happy?" for the gentler question, "What is alive here?" Maybe it is the taste of warm tea, the weight of a book in your hand, the rhythm of footsteps on a sidewalk. Let small moments count. Joy grows suspicious when it thinks it must perform on cue. It relaxes when it is welcomed without pressure. Another shift, from getting to giving. Notice how trying to make a day perfect squeezes it, but offering a small help to someone else opens it. Send the message. Hold the door. Ask a real question and wait for the long answer. Service is not a detour from happiness. It is one of its secret doors. Move your body without treating it like a project. Walk without tracking the steps. Stretch without judging the form. The mind softens when the body moves kindly, and in that softening, emotion has room to breathe. Nature helps, not because it delivers instant bliss, but because it lowers the volume inside long enough to hear gentler notes. Be wary of the highlight reel that asks for constant comparison. The more we scan for proof that we should feel good, the more we notice what is missing. Comparison measures, presence receives. Put the phone down for a moment. Let silence be awkward. On the other side of awkward lives, ease. If sadness arrives, do not argue it out of the room. Weather changes. Let feelings pass through like clouds and keep tending the ground beneath them. A life watered with simple, steady actions tends to bloom in its own time. In the end, think less about how to be happy and more about how to be here. Plant tiny seeds of care. Follow warm conversations. Do one thing all the way. And while you are living, glance to your side. See? The firefly is fluttering along, untrapped, close enough to light your path. Clench a bar of soap and it rockets from your hand. Hold it gently and it stays. That is the effortless paradox. The harder you force, the more life slips away. Ease your grip, and suddenly the thing you wanted sits right where you can reach it. I learned this the sweaty way. I had a make-or-break presentation, and I cared so much I rehearsed until my voice sounded like a machine. I stacked note cards, timing, and bullet points in my head until it throbbed. When the projector died, my script vanished. Panic rose. Then something simple happened. I laughed, took a breath, and spoke to the room like people instead of obstacles. They laughed back. Questions flowed. The meeting ended with a yes I had tried to brute force and could not. When I stopped gripping the moment held me. We think more effort equals more results. Effort matters, but the strain of over-caring twists effort into tension. The mind narrows, the body tightens. We aim and our hands shake. A basketball player at the line, a musician at an audition, someone trying to fall asleep, someone trying to be charming on a first date. The story repeats: chase, tighten, miss. Then there is the day you treat the free throw like a backyard shot, the song like a favourite, the date like a conversation, sleep like the tide. You care, but lightly. It works. Lightly does not mean lazily. It means devotion without desperation. Care about the craft, not the applause. Care about the swing, not the score. When you fixate on outcomes, you invite fear to run the show. When you return to the process, you invite skill to lead. Try this. Before the next task you are gripping, pause for a handful of slow breaths. Let your exhale be longer than your inhale. Drop your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Whisper, I can handle whatever happens. Replace, I must succeed, with let me see what happens. Walk in with the curiosity of a scientist instead of the burden of a final exam. Curiosity opens. Control closes. Then do the thing. And notice how much more of your talent shows up when your ego steps to the side. If this sounds like letting go, it is. Not giving up, but loosening up. Grip a tennis racket too tight and your arm tires early. Loosen a touch and your swing grows fluid. The same applies to writing an email, pitching a client, having a hard talk, even finding an idea. Have you noticed how inspiration ignores you at the desk and finds you in the shower or on a walk? When attention wanders, pressure drops, and your deeper patterns can surface. Set a simple intention, then release the result. Show up fully and forget how it looks. Put the work in and then let the work work. The paradox will meet you where you are. Try less forcing and more allowing, less clenching and more contact. You may find that what you wanted was never far. It was just waiting for you to soften your hold so it could land. There is a strange magnet hiding in your chest, and it only switches on the moment you stop reaching for someone else to turn it on. We call it the love paradox. The less you need someone, the more they feel pulled toward you. It sounds cold at first, like a strategy, but it is really the opposite. Needing someone is a grip. Loving someone is an open palm. People can feel the difference even when no words are spoken. Think about the last time you wanted a text back so badly that you stared at your phone like it was a slot machine. The need was loud. Your energy reached past the screen, and the other person felt the weight of it, even if they could not explain why. Now remember the time your life was full, your attention rooted in your own day, and you replied when you could. Suddenly you were a little mysterious. Not because you were playing games, but because you were busy living. That is the magnet. We crave what feels rare. We respect what respects itself. Someone who is whole without us makes us curious. Someone who is breathing fine without our air makes us want to move closer. When you do not outsource your happiness, you become the safest place to be around because you are not asking anyone to carry you. Security is attractive. Calm is attractive. Boundaries are the most underrated love letters. The paradox does not punish tenderness. You can be warm, generous and affectionate while being unneedy. In fact, your kindness becomes more valuable when it is not bargaining for approval. Love expands in rooms where no one is holding it hostage. It contracts when it is used to fill a personal void. If this stings, it is only because you care. Use that caring differently. Instead of convincing someone to choose you, choose yourself in visible ways. Put the phone down and go for the walk you keep postponing. Learn the skill you have romanticized for years. Spend time with friends who laugh loudly and love you back. Make your home a place you want to return to. When your life holds you, other people can approach without feeling responsible for your weather. When you speak, speak clearly. I like you. I enjoy this. Here is what I am available for. Then release the answer. Let people show you if they can meet you there. If they do not, you did not lose anything. You spared yourself a long unraveling. That is the paradox's hidden gift. Needing less does not kill romance. It filters it, So what remains is genuine. Imagine you are a lighthouse. You do not chase ships. You stand, you shine, you turn, you wait. The ones meant to arrive navigate by your steadiness, not your pursuit. And when they do, you are still whole, still glowing, still you. So loosen your grip. Hold space, not chains. Build a life that feeds you, and let love add flavour, not oxygen. The magnet inside you is already working. Step back, breathe, and let it draw the right hearts closer. It starts like this. You finally connect two ideas, and the floor under you quietly drops, revealing a wider room you never knew existed. You thought the door you opened was the destination. It was only the foyer. That feeling, equal parts thrill and vertigo, is the learning paradox. The more you learn, the more you notice the horizon backing up, daring you to take another step. I remember watching a barista pour a leaf into a latte. I asked how. They smiled and said, "Start with the milk." Easy enough, until milk turned into temperature, then angle, then flow rate, then roast profile, then water chemistry, then the way air folds into foam. Every answer grew branches that asked for more light. I did not get worse at coffee in that moment. I simply saw how big coffee had always been. Here is the twist that matters. The moment you notice how much there is, your ego wants to shield you. It whispers, "You are behind." But that voice is measuring with the wrong ruler. Real progress is not the shrinking of questions, but the sharpening of them. Psychologically, recognizing the gap creates safety and lowers the defensiveness that shuts learning down. When curiosity feels safe, it stays open. Think about the first weeks of learning a new language. At first, you memorize greetings and feel invincible. Then, idioms show up. Dialects, slang, the way sarcasm bends a sentence. A friend told me, "I thought I was bad at this now." I said, "No, you are meeting the rest of the language. Of course it looks bigger now. Not failure, but visibility. Not a wall, but a map." The old habit is to chase closure, collect answers, stack trophies, keep the shelf tidy. The reframe is to collect better questions. They pull you forward. They tell you exactly where to stand next. When you treat confusion as data instead of a verdict, resistance eases and momentum returns. A simple practice helps. Keep a question journal. After you learn anything, one page of a book, one conversation, one tutorial, write down the clearest question that appeared, not 10. 1. Over time, you will watch those questions evolve from "what is this?" to "when does this apply?" to "why does this fail in edge cases?" That shift is a quiet certificate of growth. Choose a corner and go deep. Depth magnifies ignorance at first, then organizes it. You will see patterns repeat, principles rhyme, and one day a door will open to another room. Celebrate that drop in your stomach. It means you found the next horizon. If you mentor someone, praise their noticing as much as their knowing. Say, "I like the way you spotted that exception," or "you asked a question I had not considered." Affirm the compass, not just the mile marker. It builds a confidence based on process, not performance, and process sustains the long road. In the end, this paradox is a gift in disguise. It keeps us humble, keeps us moving, and keeps wonder alive. You are not supposed to finish the map. You are supposed to learn how to read it, line by line, room by room, question by better question. That is the learning paradox. Frustrating until you see it clearly, liberating once you do, and a beautiful way to measure a life. The applause can be the loneliest sound in the world. You work, you grind, you finally grab the thing you chased, and then a hush slips in between the cheers. It is the strange quiet of the success paradox. Getting what you want does not always give you what you need. Maybe you know it already. The promotion arrives and the title glows on your email signature, but your mornings are heavier and your evenings are shorter. You cross the finish line of a marathon, and for a breathless minute you feel like a superhero. Then you put the medal in a drawer and wonder what comes next. You buy the dream place, and the first night is a symphony of new silence that somehow feels emptier than the cramped life you left. This is not failure. This is the brain doing what it always does, normalizing victory as quickly as it normalized hunger. It is hedonic drift, the arrival fallacy, the mirage that promises water and then tastes like air. The problem is not wanting. Wanting is human. The problem is mistaking the map for the terrain and the trophy for the purpose. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Success is not a finish line. It is a hallway. Doors open with every step you take, but each door reveals another corridor. When you believe the hallway ends in a single perfect room, you stand shocked when the knob turns and there is more walking to do. So the fix is not to stop walking. The fix is to walk with better shoes. Better shoes look like this. Define success as a direction, not a destination. Choose a compass word that outlives any milestone. Learn, serve, build, love, explore. When the title changes, the direction does not. Success shifts from a noun to a verb, from I am to I do. Trade endless more for a clear enough. Enough is not settling. It is sovereignty. It lets you say yes with your whole chest and no without apology. It is drawing the outline of your life, so the picture inside has colour. Build joy into the doing, not the done. If you hate every step to the summit, the view will not save you. Give yourself rewards inside the process. The coffee after the writing session, the walk after the workout, the laugh during the late shift. Small joys are not distractions, they are fuel. Measure what you make, but also measure what it makes of you. Racks of plaques are light work compared to a relationship you protected, integrity you kept, or curiosity you refused to extinguish. Ask the quiet questions success tries to drown out. Did I go fast or did I go far? Did I impress or did I impact? Did I build a life or just a resume and share the climb? Solitary success is brittle, meaning grows when handed to someone else. Mentor the person behind you. Celebrate the teammate next to you. Thank the version of you who started when it was hard and no one was watching. Here is the paradox resolved, not by logic, but by living. When you choose a direction rooted in values, when you name your enough, when you weave joy and generosity into the steps, success stops being a place you arrive and becomes a way you move. The applause fades, the quiet remains, and in that quiet you finally hear yourself. If success is a locked door, failure is the bruised shoulder that eventually opens it. It is the sting that makes you flinch, and the bruise that teaches you exactly where the door will give. We try to bargain with it, to slip past unnoticed, but every meaningful win seems to demand a toll paid in missteps, embarrassments, and attempts that go nowhere. That is the paradox. The pain you are trying to avoid is the only mentor that will not lie to you. Think back to your last real stumble, the one that made you question whether you belonged. Maybe it was a presentation that unraveled, a launch that barely moved the needle, or a conversation that left you wishing for a do-over. In that moment, you were probably tempted to explain it away. The timing was off. The audience did not get it. The market was wrong. But listen closely. The lesson was already speaking, and it was speaking with precision. It was pointing at the exact skill you have been postponing. The assumption you never tested, the blind spot you insisted was not there. There is a baker who burns batch after batch while chasing the perfect crust. There is a runner who collapses on the hill that becomes their favourite training ground. There is a musician who misses notes until the melody starts to live in their hands. Each one is nursing small hurts, gathering quiet data, and slowly becoming the person who can pull off what they could not touch before. The wins look smooth from the outside. Up close, they are blistered. We treat failure like a verdict when it is actually a measurement. It tells you what does not work, and that is ridiculously valuable because it narrows the maze. Every try changes the map. You go from guessing to knowing, from hoping to iterating. Even your feelings are data. The frustration shows you what you care about. The embarrassment shows you where your identity has attached itself too tightly. The fear shows you exactly where growth will be found next. You can practice this paradox. Keep your attempts small enough to survive and frequent enough to learn. Ask a real person to use your draft, your prototype, your pitch, and then shut up long enough to hear where it breaks. Afterward, resist the urge to label yourself. Label the choice, the step, the variable that did not work. Then change one thing and try again. The moment you make failure impersonal, it becomes useful. There is a deeper kindness in failing forward. It cuts you down to size and then rebuilds you on solid ground. It turns ambition into craft. It strips away fantasy and replaces it with evidence. You stop worshipping the finish line and start enjoying the repetitions. You stop saying one day and you start saying, "This is what I am practicing now." Let the bruise be your compass. You do not have to like it. You simply have to keep going long enough for the door to move. When it finally swings, it will not feel like luck. It will feel like the honest result of 1,000 tiny collapses that taught you how to push in exactly the right place. You can wave both arms like a windmill and still be invisible. That is the strange tug of attention. The harder you chase it, the faster it slips through your fingers. Attention is like a shy cat. If you lunge, it darts under the couch. Sit still, warm and patient, and you feel it brush your ankle. We try so hard to be noticed that we end up broadcasting the one thing no one wants to feel from us, a grasp. People can sense when you need them to look. Need is loud. It crackles in the tone of your voice, in the extra sparkle on a post, in the way a sentence lifts at the end begging for applause. The room hears the pleading, not the point. There is another quirk at play. When you believe every eye is on you, you talk too fast, add too much, decorate what did not need decorating. That nervous polish dulls the truth. The message disappears under the varnish. The audience is not rejecting you. They are just looking for a clear signal in a storm of static. Think about the last time someone cornered you with a speech about themselves. You found the nearest exit. Then remember the person who asked you one good question and waited for your answer. You stepped closer. We move toward those who see us. So here is the twist. The most reliable way to be seen is to spend your energy seeing. Ask, listen, notice. When you hand out attention with no strings attached, you become a place where attention feels safe to land. It works for craft too. Shouting about your work rarely replaces doing it well. The song that sticks is not the one performed by the noisiest band. It is the melody you cannot shake hours later, played with care and timing. Substance travels without a megaphone. Quiet excellence is not a whisper. It is a bell. The paradox does not mean you must hide. It means you stop treating attention like oxygen and start treating it like weather. You cannot control the breeze, but you can put up a kite and give it something to lift. Speak with fewer words and mean each one. Leave a beat of silence after the point and let people meet you in it. Say the true thing once, cleanly. Then stop. If you create, create as if no one is watching, so you can follow the thread that matters. If you lead, lead by lighting the path, not by yanking sleeves. If you want your story remembered, tell it for the person listening, not for the crowd imagined behind them. The crowd is a mirage. The person in front of you is real. Attention is not a prize you win. It is a reflection people offer when they trust your presence. Let your work be the invitation. Let your character be the reason to stay. Tend to the craft, the care, the listening. The cat comes out when the room is calm. And when it curls in your lap, you did not trap it. You hosted it. Here is a strange truth. You only believe after you feel it. The version of you who pretends to be brave can quietly raise the real you to meet the stage. Confidence often arrives late. It rarely shows up before the speech, the interview, the first date. It waits in the wings, watching to see if you will step forward anyway. That is the paradox. You do the thing as if you belong there, and your nervous system, suspicious at first, eventually nods and says, "Ah, this must be who we are." Pretending is not lying. It is rehearsal. Actors know this. Athletes know this. Your body only needs a script to follow, and your mind will start filling in the character. Shoulders slightly back. Breath slower and deeper than feels natural. Words delivered just a shade more slowly than your anxiety wants. These are tiny performances, but tiny performances become habits, and habits become identity. Think of the moments that erode you. The meeting where you shrink into your chair. The phone call you let go to voicemail because you do not feel ready. Try something different. Borrow a confident posture, like a jacket that is not yet tailored. It may feel oversized at first. Let it hang on you for a while. Walk into the room as if your future self sent you there. Put your feet flat, root your weight, and speak in complete sentences. Pretend you have time, and time will treat you differently. There is a simple way to practice. Choose a small arena where the stakes are light. Order coffee with a clear voice and friendly eye contact. Ask a clarifying question in a meeting, even when your heart taps your ribs. When someone compliments you, pause and say, "Thank you," full stop. Do this not to trick others, but to train your own nervous system that you survive these moments. Confidence is the receipt your body prints after repeated proof of safety. You do not need to feel ready to start. Feeling ready is often what shows up after you start. So pick a role name if it helps. Maybe it is the calm presenter, the steady friend, the decisive manager. Step into that role for a few minutes at a time. When doubt whispers, borrow lines, "I can handle this." One breath, then the next. Let your voice carry your courage across the gap your feelings cannot yet jump. If fear says you are being fake, remind it that you are being in progress. You are not replacing yourself. You are rehearsing a truer version of you, the one not handcuffed to every flicker of panic. Over time, the border between acting and being blurs. The jacket gets tailored. The posture feels like home. One day, you will catch yourself answering a hard question with steady eyes, laughing off a small mistake, or asking for what you want without apology. You will wonder when the shift happened. It happened each time you pretended just long enough to let the real you arrive. That is the confidence paradox. You play the part until the part plays you, and then you realize it was you all along. Imagine a door that unlocks only after you've stepped through it. That's what change feels like. You stand there, hand hovering, waiting for a click that never comes, not realizing the click is triggered by your first step. The mind wants certainty before motion, but certainty is born from motion. Nothing changes until you do, and change feels impossible until you begin. Think about the cold water you avoided for weeks. You sit at the edge wanting to feel warm before you dive. But warmth is the reward, not the prerequisite. The first toe in is uncomfortable. The second is uncertain, and by the time your shoulders sink, your body is adapting, recalibrating, becoming the person who swims instead of the person who watches. The water never gets warmer for the hesitant. You get braver for the willing. We tell ourselves we need clarity, motivation, or confidence first, but confidence is not a permission slip. It is a receipt. It shows up after you pay with effort. Clarity is not a map handed to you at the start. It is a path revealed by footsteps. Motivation is not a spark that starts the fire. It is the heat that arrives because you struck the match again and again. So start with something so small it can't scare you. Not the entire marathon, just the shoelace. Not the perfect chapter, just the first messy sentence. Not a complete reinvention, just a single choice that aligns with the person you want to become. Move the glass of water closer, lay out the clothes, open the file. Tiny is not trivial. Tiny is the lever that lifts what looks immovable. Your brain will protest. It will bargain, stall, and flood you with reasons why this is not the right morning, why this is not the right season. It will promise that tomorrow will be easier. Tomorrow is a mirage that moves as you chase it. All you have is today's door, waiting for your weight against it. Here is the paradox's mercy. You do not need to be a different person to begin. Beginning is what makes you different. The first minute rewires the next minute. The first awkward conversation makes the second one honest. The first imperfect workout turns into a week of movement. You start as a beginner and leave as a participant. That is the quiet magic of starting. When you feel resistance, shrink the target, not the ambition. Aim for one breath, one reach, one step. Let momentum be your ally, and let repetition be your teacher. You will never feel fully ready. That is not a problem. That is the signal. Ready is the feeling that trails behind your actions, waving to you from a few steps back. One day soon, you will look up and realize you are on the other side of the threshold you once feared. The door did not unlock because you waited. It unlocked because you walked. Nothing changes until you do, but change does not wait for perfect conditions. It waits for you to move, and then it moves with you. I once armoured my life with calendars, passwords, and backup plans, and still felt a quiet tremor under my feet. That is the strange thing about safety. The harder you chase it, the faster it runs. You lock every door, double-check every message. And somehow your mind keeps whispering, "What did you miss?" The security paradox lives in that whisper. When safety becomes a chase, your brain learns a lesson it can never unlearn. There must be danger nearby, or why else would we be running? So it listens harder, scans wider, and turns up the volume on every little uncertainty. The more you fortify, the more fragile you feel. Think about money. You refresh your balance again and again, build spreadsheets of your future, and stack savings like sandbags. Yet every click invites another question, another what if, another late-night forecast of storms that may never come. Think about love. You read between lines. Test the temperature of every silence, and your fear of loss squeezes the life from what you're trying to keep. Think about work. You plan 2 steps ahead, then 3, and still feel behind because the plan can never hold the whole sky. Even with health, you track every metric until the tracking becomes the stress. Security does not show up when you demand certainty. It shows up when you build capacity. A sailor trusts the boat not because the sea is predictable, but because they have learned to meet the wind. A climber feels calm on the wall, not because falling is impossible, but because they have practiced how to fall. Safety, real safety, is a side effect of strength and skill, and the willingness to be with what you cannot control. So how do you live this? Decide what genuinely needs protection and what can be exposed to air. Keep a margin of safety where the stakes are high and let the rest breathe. If your finances matter, set an automatic plan and check on a schedule you can keep, not a schedule your fear demands. If your heart matters, say the thing you mean rather than testing for guarantees. If your work matters, make the next useful move and let uncertainty ride shotgun. You are not removing risk. You are choosing the size of the risks you are willing to carry. Shrink the rituals that inflate your anxiety. Pick one checking habit and cut it in half. Replace the gap with a small act of growth, a skill you can practice, a conversation you can have, a tiny step that moves you toward what you value. Map the worst case, name the best case, and then choose an action that would leave you proud in most cases. When the mind spins, let the body lead. Take a slow breath for the length of 2 heartbeats in, 4 heartbeats out. Anxiety hates rhythm because rhythm is a kind of trust. The paradox will not disappear. But when you stop sprinting after safety and start walking toward aliveness, a quiet confidence arrives. It will not promise you certainty. It will give you something better. It will give you yourself, steady enough to face whatever comes. If you never want to drown, you might never learn to breathe. Playing it safe feels smart because nothing breaks, but nothing grows either. Safety is a soft chair that slowly stiffens your spine. You stop stretching, you stop reaching. And one quiet morning, you realize the floor moved while you stood still. That is the risk paradox. The longer you avoid uncertainty, the more certain the cost becomes. Think about the choices you skip because they might go wrong. You do not make the call because you might be rejected. You do not share the idea because someone might laugh. You do not try the new tool because the old one still works. In each moment, the safe choice removes a small dose of stress, but small doses add up, and tomorrow's compound. Skills age, markets shift, relationships atrophy, confidence calcifies. The risk you dodge today becomes the life you do not recognize 10 years from now. Most people weigh the risk of action and forget the risk of inaction. The risk of action is loud and immediate, a no, a loss, a stumble. The risk of inaction is quiet and delayed, a door that never opens, potential that never wakes up. One costs pride, the other costs time. You can recover pride. Time will not refund you. Courage is not about leaping off cliffs. It is about taking steps that keep options alive. Optionality is a quiet superpower. When you try, you learn. Learning creates branches. Branches create more paths. Safety without growth cuts branches. You end up with one path, the one you are already on, even if it no longer leads where you want to go. The good news is you do not need to set your life on fire to escape the paradox. You need tiny, repeated experiments with a clear safety net. Ask for feedback from one person who will tell you the truth. Ship one rough draft and invite edits. Allocate a small slice of your week to the skill you are avoiding. Take on a project that feels just one size too big. Cap your downside with boundaries, but do not cap your upside with fear. If it helps, use a simple rule. Chase a little discomfort on purpose. The right kind of discomfort is a compass. Butterflies mean you are near a boundary. The point is not to crush them, but to let them fly while you move forward. These micro risks are not random gambles. They are designed stress. The way a muscle grows by lifting a weight it can barely handle. And like a muscle, growth is invisible until it becomes obvious. A funny thing happens when you take small risks repeatedly. You start to trust yourself. You realize you can survive a no. You learn how to adjust mid-air, and the world starts to notice you are in motion, sending chances to meet you on the road. The safest place is often the storm you can steer through, not the harbour where your boat rots. So pick one wave, send the message, ask the question, try the tool, take the class. Your future self is already waiting on the other side, wondering what took you so long. Your calendar is a peacock. All feathers, no flight. It looks impressive, full of colour and movement, and still somehow you end the day wondering why the thing that mattered most never left the runway. That is the busy paradox. Being in motion feels like progress. It feels safe. It feels admirable. And it is very often procrastination wearing a headset. Think about the last time you felt wildly productive. You answered messages before breakfast. You joined back-to-back calls. You cleaned your desk, organised your notes, colour-coded your plans. You were a blur of activity. Yet the proposal, the portfolio, the hard conversation, the draft that could actually change something sat untouched. You were not lazy. You were busy. And busy can be a perfect hiding place. Why is this so tempting? Busyness offers instant rewards. Every small task delivers a tiny celebration. You get visible proof that you are doing something. The big task, the brave task, has none of that at the start. It asks for uncertainty, silence, and sometimes a little fear. So the mind negotiates a deal. Let us do the easy, visible things, and we will call it progress. There is a difference between motion and momentum. Motion is activity you can point to. Momentum is movement toward a chosen outcome. Motion floods your day. Momentum changes it. If your efforts do not change your future options, they are probably motion. If your efforts make the next step clearer or lighter, you have momentum. That is the test. Here is how to step out of the busy paradox without a heroic overhaul. Name the outcome you keep dodging in plain words. No poetry, no perfection, just the honest target you are avoiding. Then shrink the first step until it almost feels silly. Not the first 3 steps, not the perfect plan, just the tiniest concrete action that would make the next action obvious. Open the file. Write the first rough sentence. Call the number and ask one question. Ship one draft to one person. Protect a small block of real time for that action before you touch the tasks that applaud you. Not after the inbox, not after the meetings. Before, your brain will bargain. It will say the desk must be clean, the messages must be answered, the plan must be perfect. Smile at that voice and give it a job later. Right now, only the smallest brave step gets your attention. When you finish, capture the win so your mind learns a new habit. Write down what you did, not what you planned. A line or 2 is enough. You are teaching yourself that momentum, not motion, is what earns celebration. Repeat tomorrow. The steps stay small as the outcomes get bigger. Being busy is easy to explain. Being effective is quieter at first and then obvious to everyone. The paradox will keep inviting you back into noise. Choose the signal. Catch yourself polishing the feathers and return to the runway. The point is not to do more. The point is to move the thing that matters, even a little, even today. What if your success is quietly stealing the very life you're working so hard to afford? You set out to earn a living, to cover the basics and build a future, and then the work swells. The inbox multiplies, the expectations stack, and the calendar fills so tightly that oxygen becomes an appointment. You work to live, and somehow, the more you work, the less you actually live. That is the paradox. It is sneaky because it wears a heroic mask. Long hours look like commitment. Constant availability looks like leadership. But a life that is always on call has no place to arrive. This is not about quitting your job or abandoning ambition. It is about remembering what the job is for. Work is a tool. Life is the project. Somewhere along the way, many of us swap the two. We let work become the container and try to pour a whole life into the leftover space. It does not fit. No wonder joy spills. Try this inversion. Design the life first, then fit the work. If you sketch the contours of a week that would feel like yours, what would be non-negotiable? Maybe it is real sleep, shared meals that are not rushed, a walk without headphones where your thoughts catch up, a hobby that has no productive outcome, movement that feels like play. Put those in ink. Now you have a shape worth protecting. Protection requires boundaries you can actually keep. Choose a default stop time and make a small ritual that marks the exit. Close the laptop, turn off desk lights, step outside and breathe the air. Listen for the first evening birds and say, "That is enough for today." Enough is a brave word. Choose it on purpose. Decide what enough money looks like, what enough progress means, what enough status feels like. Without enough, more will own you. Treat your energy like a budget. Do not spend tomorrow's peace to buy today's approval. When a new task appears, ask what you will subtract to make room. If the answer is sleep, relationships, or your health, the cost is too high. Remember that time with people you love compounds in value, while a lot of tasks expire without consequence when you simply do not do them. Embrace seasons. There are weeks to sprint and weeks to coast. The problem is not sprinting. The problem is pretending the sprint never ends. Name the finish line before you start. Let your team know. Let yourself know. Celebrate the exhale with the same ceremony you give to the grind. Make tiny moments non-negotiable. The first sip of coffee with no screen. Sun on your face at midday. A song played loud between meetings. A page of the book you keep promising to read. The smallest rituals can anchor an entire day. Say no as if you are paying the mortgage on your future. Because you are. Every no buys a little square of time that remains truly yours. Do not trade that land for someone else's emergency. One day, you will look back and measure a life not by milestones but by mornings. Ask yourself what will matter in 5 summers. Then work backward. Let your job serve that answer. The paradox will not vanish. It will guide you. Work to live fully. Then stop and live. Freedom smells like pine and diesel the day you haul your life up a dirt road and promise yourself, this time it's all on you. Then the first storm knocks out the power, your phone service flickers, and you realize your off-grid dream still runs on someone else's lines. Here's the paradox most of us bump into quietly. The more independent you become, the more carefully you choose which systems you'll depend on. Independence doesn't mean escape. It means selection. Not isolation, but coordination. Take the person building a one-person business. They write every email, ship every order, answer every message. It looks like total control, but under the hood, they rely on payment processors to move money, cloud servers to host their store, shipping carriers to deliver packages, and code libraries written by strangers to make their site work. I want to control everything, they say. Great, a mentor replies. Start by reading the terms of service of every tool you use. Independence isn't deleting the tools. It's understanding the trade-offs and choosing them with eyes open. Or think about the runner who trains alone before sunrise. No teammates, no crowd, just breath and road. Yet the shoes are engineered by teams she will never meet. The route is paved by a city crew, the training plan is copied from a coach's program, and on race day, volunteers hand her water. She owns her effort, yes, but her effort is held by a network that makes it possible. Psychologically, autonomy grows when the scaffolding around you is trustworthy. Reliable systems remove friction, reduce decision fatigue, and free your focus for the part only you can do. That is why the feeling of "I've got this" often shows up after you've quietly secured support. So how do you wield the paradox instead of fighting it? First, swap the myth of going alone for the practice of choosing allies. Not any system, the right system. Not more tools, the few that lower noise. Second, diversify your dependencies. If one platform is your entire lifeline, you are not independent, you are fragile. Build small backups, the way hikers pack an extra flask. Not because you plan to use it, but because risk is part of the trail. Third, know the price of convenience. Every easy button rents a little slice of your attention, your data, or your terms. Pay on purpose, or you pay by surprise. There's also a human layer. Independence can turn brittle when it becomes a performance of "I need no one." People do their best work when they feel both free and supported, which is why a simple, steady check-in from a friend can make you more decisive, not less. When you reframe independence as coordinated freedom, it lowers defenses and builds trust, including the trust you have in your own choices. You might ask, isn't dependence the opposite of independence? In practice, no. The opposite of independence is drift, letting random systems choose you. Real independence is curatorial. You pick the rails so your train can move. You pick the rules so your game can be played. You pick the handful of commitments that let you say 1,000 clean no's. So stand in the paradox without flinching. Be the person who can carry their own pack and still accept a map. Build the skill, then build the scaffolding. Choose your dependencies like a craftsperson chooses tools. Specific, few, well-maintained. That is how you become the kind of independent that lasts. Not by severing every tie, but by tying the right knots in the right places on purpose. There is a thief that only steals on birthdays, and it makes hours slip like water through your fingers. You feel it when a long summer once lasted forever, and now a whole season behaves like a long weekend. The paradox is simple and unnerving. The older you get, the faster time feels, even though every second is still the same size. What changes is not the clock, but the way your mind measures. As a child, life is a parade of firsts, and firsts stretch time. Newness lights up your senses, your attention locks on, your memory paints with thick strokes. Your brain saves more detail, so looking back feels like a larger space to walk through. As an adult, routine smooths the edges. You drive the same streets, drink the same coffee, have the same conversations, and your brain stops taking notes. When your days rhyme, your memory compresses them, and compressed days feel short. You are not living less. You are storing less. There is also proportion at work. 1 year is a tiny slice of a long life, so it feels smaller next to everything that came before. When you were 5, 1 year was an ocean. When you are 50, 1 year is a cup. Add to that divided attention, the constant hum of alerts, and the habit of rehearsing a future that never quite arrives. Presence thins, moments blur, and time learns to sprint. But here is the turn. You can slow the sprint without rolling back a single birthday. You do it by feeding your memory with rich, noticeable moments. Seek firsts again, even the small kind. Take a new route to a familiar place and hunt for 3 details you have never seen. Cook a dish you have never tried and name the smells out loud. Sit in a different chair, in a different room, and write 1 sentence about the day that includes a sound, a colour, and a taste. Invite a stranger into a short conversation and learn 1 thing that surprises you. Travel your own city as if you just arrived and let your feet choose left when your habits whisper right. Make rituals that anchor the weeks. A walk at sunrise every Sunday. A photo of the same tree as it changes through the year. A quiet toast at dinner where each person shares a tiny victory from the day. When you repeat with intention, you turn routine into an event your brain honours. Give yourself white space too, because unclaimed time expands. Guard 1 evening with no plans, no screens, just the company of your breath and the view from a window. Slowness is not wasted. It is how moments get a chance to speak. Most of all, savour. Taste the first sip fully. Listen all the way to the end of the laugh. When you catch yourself rushing, ask, what would make this scene worth remembering? Then do that small thing. The paradox does not have to win. You cannot change the math of years, but you can change the density of your days. Make your life heavier with meaning, and you will feel time loosen, just enough to hold it. Tap, refresh, sigh. Again. You know that restless loop. It feels like you're doing something when really you're just pacing in place. Here's the paradox most of us wrestle with. Waiting feels like wasting time, but rushing ruins outcomes. Think about the last message you typed in frustration, then almost sent. The draft was hot. Your heart was loud. You could have fired it off and gotten it over with. Or you could wait, not forever. Just long enough to cool the signal and sharpen the words. That pause feels useless, like dead air, but it often turns a mess into a moment of clarity. Psychologically, when we grind without pausing, our attention and judgment slip. A brief step back resets focus and leads to smarter choices. Even short breaks, especially taken before you hit the wall, are linked to better performance. Waiting is not nothing. It is maintenance for your mind. Picture this. A co-worker rushes to close the loop on a decision. You say, let's give this 1 more hour. While the clock ticks, you gather 1 more data point, replay the conversation, and notice the detail everyone missed. The rushed version would have felt productive. The patient version is accurate. And accuracy is speed in disguise because it prevents the rework, the repair, the apology tour that follows a hasty call. Patience is not passive. It is active restraint. It is the discipline to let bread rise, paint dry, and ideas breathe. Athletes build rests into training so the next set is powerful, not sloppy. Surgeons plan deliberate pauses to keep their hands precise. That isn't slacking. That's strategy. If waiting makes you itchy, give it a job. While you wait, define the quality bar. What would right look like, not just done? While you wait, run a tiny test that costs little but teaches a lot. While you wait, write the email you want to send, then put it in drafts, step away, and return with cooler eyes. Waiting, engaged with purpose, becomes progress you can feel. There's a reason this works. The brain likes closure and hates uncertainty, so we chase the quick hit of finished. But that hit can be expensive. A measured pause widens your field of view. You notice risks and options that urgency hides. You catch the word that changes the tone. You see the extra step that prevents the future headache. The result isn't slower, it is cleaner. Cleaner choices compound. Ask yourself in tense moments, am I accelerating because I'm aligned or because I'm anxious? If it is anxiety, choose pace over panic. Not delay for the sake of delay, but timing on purpose. Not perfectionism, but precision. Not procrastination, but preparation. The patience paradox is an invitation. You can either move fast and spend the rest of the day fixing what speed broke, or move thoughtfully and spend the day moving forward. When waiting feels like wasted time, remember, it is often the quiet work that makes the loud win possible. Breathe. Buy yourself a sliver of space. Use it well. Then act with confidence, because you waited long enough to see clearly and short enough to keep momentum. Your first masterpiece will probably look like a toddler's drawing on a foggy window. Good. That smudge is the ticket stub to the show you actually want to see. Here is the knot most people never untangle. You need experience to become good, but you only earn experience by being not good in public. The practice paradox feels unfair because your taste arrives before your talent. You can hear the wrong note, you can see the crooked line, you can tell your words land flat, and that awareness stings. But that sting is not a verdict. It is a compass. Think about the first time you tried anything that mattered. The ball slipped, the cake sank, the brush skipped, the code broke. You were not failing, you were paying tuition. Every awkward repetition is a small tuition payment towards skill, and those payments cannot be dodged. The only choice you get is whether to spread them out gently over time, or to stack them later with interest in the form of regret. The clever trick is to make the bad phase survivable and frequent. Shrink the stage. Aim for tiny, ugly attempts that you can finish today. Write a paragraph that wobbles. Sketch a box that looks like a potato. Record a 30-second voice note that makes you wince. The goal is not to be impressive. The goal is to keep the loop short enough that you can return tomorrow. Short loops turn embarrassment into momentum. When you can, invite friction that teaches rather than punishes. Share your draft with one honest friend and ask one narrow question. Not what do you think, but where did you get bored, or which part confused you? Specific discomfort has edges you can hold on to. Vague criticism is smoke. Make boredom your training partner. Skill grows in quiet, repetitive passes where nothing exciting seems to happen. The athlete ties the same knot. The musician isolates the same bar. The writer trims the same sentence until it finally breathes. You are not stuck. You are sanding. The shine shows up after enough passes. Reframe cringe as proof of growth. If old work does not make you squirm a little, you are not moving. That squirm is a receipt that says paid for by your past self, so your future self can cash in. And be kind to that past self. They walked you to the door you can now open. You will be tempted to wait for confidence. Do not. Confidence is not the fuel, it is the exhaust. It trails behind action. Build identity from behavior rather than declarations. If you practice today, you are a practitioner today. The title arrives long after the practice starts, and that is fine. Wear the smaller name with pride until the bigger one fits. So take one messy swing. Miss loudly, laugh, and log it. Then take another. Let repetition do the quiet magic that motivation cannot. One day, without a trumpet, you will notice that your hand is steadier, your choices are cleaner, and the thing that once scared you now feels like warm muscle memory. You will look back at the foggy window drawing and smile, because it was never a flaw, it was the door. Picture walking into a room with nothing to prove, and somehow every conversation tilts your way. No chest beating, no forced charm, just steadiness. That is the respect paradox. The less you chase it, the more it finds you. Most of us learn early that respect is earned by pleasing people, collecting titles, or never making waves. So we mask our opinions, exaggerate wins, and say yes when we mean no. The result is attention without respect. People sense the push. Neediness has a scent. When you want approval, you give away authority. When you stand for something, you become the reference point. Caring less about respect does not mean caring less about people. It means shifting your center of gravity from their reaction to your principles. Self-respect first, then respect from others as a byproduct. Think of a friend who is calm under pressure. They speak when it matters, not to fill silence. They keep promises quietly. They refuse what does not fit their values without a dramatic speech. Others orbit that kind of gravity. If you want to feel it today, experiment with small detachments. When someone challenges you, do not rush to defend. Pause. Ask a clarifying question. Let your posture do the talking. Your calm says you are not negotiating your worth in this moment. When you share an accomplishment, understate it. Let results carry the weight. When plans change, do not scramble to impress. Recommit to your priorities, and people will detect that your time has borders. The paradox sharpens in conflict. Respect grows not when you win arguments, but when you keep your frame. Speak plainly. Say what you can do and what you cannot. If you do not know, say you do not know. If you need time, say you will follow up. Every clean line you draw becomes a guide rail for how others treat you. There is a difference between indifference and composure. Indifference is lazy and brittle. Composure is present and firm. You can care deeply about outcomes while refusing to be owned by them. That middle space is magnetic. It invites trust because it signals you will not sell your values for applause. Practice through micro moments. Order the meal you actually want. End a conversation when it has run its course. Decline the extra project if it breaks your focus. Offer credit freely and own mistakes without drama. Smile when appropriate and stop when flattery becomes a transaction. These small acts teach people how to read you. And more importantly, they teach you how to read yourself. Here is the tell that you're on track. Silence becomes comfortable. You no longer fill it to manage how others see you. You listen more, and when you speak, you do not rehearse who you are mid-sentence. That steadiness becomes the thing others remember. Ironically, respect returns the moment you stop auditioning for it. Anchor to your principles, not their praise. Choose clarity over performance. Keep promises. Keep boundaries. Keep your peace. Let people meet you where you stand and watch how often they choose to. Picture handing a stranger a map to your own house and saying, "I hope you use it to visit, not to rob me." That is what trust feels like. It is the quiet gamble underneath every friendship, every partnership, every love story. The paradox is cruel and beautiful at once. You cannot earn trust without risking the very bruise you're afraid of. Think about the first time you let someone borrow something you loved. Maybe it was a favorite book. You glanced at the cover, hesitated, and then passed it over anyway. When it came back with a bent spine, it stung. Your mind swore never again. But later, maybe someone else returned a book with a little note tucked inside, a thank you that felt like sunshine. That warmth did not arrive in spite of the risk. It arrived because of it. We keep trying to outsmart trust by demanding certainty. We want guarantees, contracts that cover every crack, promises sealed so tight that betrayal cannot breathe. But certainty is a locked room, and relationships cannot grow in rooms without windows. Trust needs ventilation. It needs the risk of disappointment to stay alive. At work, the paradox shows up as control. A leader who refuses to delegate thinks they are protecting quality. What they are really doing is starving their team of oxygen. Skills cannot grow without responsibility. Responsibility cannot exist without risk. You can run a tight ship that never leaves the harbour and call it safety. Or you can raise the sails, accept that waves will slap the deck, and discover who becomes a sailor when the wind is real. In love, the paradox is even sharper. You share a story you have never told anyone, and in that moment, you hand over a blade that could be used to hurt you. If the other person holds it with care, intimacy deepens. If they do not, you bleed. Some people decide the bleeding is proof they should never share again. But trust is not the promise that no one will ever cut you. It is the practice of choosing people who learn how to carry your stories without dropping them. This does not mean leaping without a parachute. The risk that builds trust can be smart, paced, and honest. Start small. Pay attention to consistency. Notice how someone responds when you say no. Watch what they do when you are not useful to them. Trust is not blind. It is bold with eyes open. You can set boundaries, name expectations, and still step forward. You can forgive without forgetting, and you can learn without hardening. The truth is, betrayal hurts less than the life lived behind glass. A heart kept safe from every crack becomes heavy and opaque. A heart that risks, breaks, repairs, and keeps beating grows clearer. The lines where it was mended start to shine. So choose one small place to lean in. Share one honest sentence you usually swallow. Delegate one task you clutch. Admit one fear to someone who has earned a little more of you. The paradox will never disappear, but it will stop feeling like a trap and start feeling like a doorway. You cannot guarantee the outcome. You can only choose the courage. Trust is built exactly there, on the thin edge where you might be hurt and might be held, and the only way to find out is to step. A strange thing happens when you clutch authority like a fistful of sand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. You can see it in boardrooms, classrooms, and even at dinner tables. A voice grows louder, rules multiply, approvals pile up, and somehow people stop bringing their best. They nod, they comply, and they quietly opt out. The paradox is simple and uncomfortable. Power looks like control, but it runs on consent. The moment you grab it, the very fuel that makes it work begins to evaporate. I once watched a new manager take over a talented team. In the first week, every decision had to root through him. He rewrote emails, sat in on every client call, and would not let anyone ship without his blessing. At first, the team tried to keep up. Then the meetings got quiet. Creative risks vanished. The clever solutions that used to appear in the margins disappeared. People waited for orders because orders were all that mattered. The work did not just slow down, it lost its soul. Here is the twist. He was not a bad person. He cared. He wanted to protect the outcome. But the urge to protect became the need to own. And the need to own turned followers into passengers. Control can produce obedience, but only trust produces initiative. And initiative is where real power lives. Contrast that with a different leader I met years later. On her first day, she asked one question that changed the room. What do you already do better than me, and how do I stay out of your way? She shared the microphone, explained the why behind decisions, and invited people to challenge her assumptions. She said the quiet sentence few in charge dare to say, "I might be wrong." The effect was immediate. People spoke up. They ran experiments without waiting for permission. They gave her their best ideas because they felt those ideas still belonged to them. Her authority did not shrink when she shared it. It expanded because it was borrowed from the trust of others, not extracted. Think about the last time you felt micromanaged. Did you risk more or hide more? Did you follow the person or did you follow the policy? When people feel watched, they play not to lose. When they feel trusted, they play to win. If you want real influence, trade certainty for curiosity. Replace rigid instructions with clear outcomes and room to move. Ask for dissent before you ask for agreement. Offer public credit and take private blame. State your boundaries, then let people find their path within them. Power that is held lightly signals safety. Safety unlocks effort. Effort, compounding over time, becomes the kind of power you cannot manufacture by force. The paradox will not change. The more you reach for power to keep it, the more people step back and leave you standing alone with your perfectly controlled nothing. But if you give people a reason to choose you, they will hand you more influence than you could ever seize. Try this tomorrow. Give away one decision you usually keep. Name the outcome, share your reasoning and step back. Watch how much more you get by taking less. That is the quiet math of leadership. Subtract to multiply. The first time I learned what generosity really costs, it came with a thank you that never arrived. I kept pouring, the cup stayed silent, and I realized there's a point where giving stops feeling noble and starts feeling invisible. Here's the paradox. When you give too much, people stop seeing the gift. It becomes background noise, like a fridge that hums until you forget it is there. But when you hold back too much, people stop seeing you. They drift, assuming your closed door means a closed heart. Both extremes are lonely. One is crowded loneliness. The other is the quiet kind. So how do you live in the middle without becoming hard or hollow? Start by naming what you can give freely, what you can give sometimes, and what you will not give at all. Time, energy, attention, money, encouragement, each belongs in one of those buckets. Protect the red bucket. Negotiate the yellow bucket. Share the green without guilt or scoreboard. Think of generosity like watering a garden. A flood drowns roots. A drought starves them. Plants do best with rhythm, not rescue. Short, steady, honest. Give in patterns you could repeat on a tough week, not just on your best one. If your kindness requires you to be superhuman, it will quietly turn into resentment the moment you become simply human. Another check? Ask yourself, would I offer this again tomorrow without bitterness? If the answer is no, press pause. Overgiving often hides a secret deal. I will overextend, and in return you will see me, love me, need me. But unspoken deals are coupons no one knows to redeem. Speak your limits early. Tell people how to win with you. Say, I can help for an hour. After that, I need to recharge. That sentence is not selfish. It is instruction for a sustainable relationship. Shift your aim from relief to resilience. Relief fixes the moment. Resilience shapes the future. Instead of always doing the task for someone, teach them once, encourage them twice, check in a third time, and then step back. Give in ways that create capability, not dependency. Your help should make tomorrow lighter for both of you, not heavier for you alone. Reciprocity matters, but do not audit every kindness. Look for the overall pattern. If giving to someone repeatedly shrinks your joy and their effort, you are not generous, you are a backup generator. Backup generators are loud, expensive, and only noticed during outages. You deserve sunlight relationships, not blackout ones. Celebrate the costs of your yes by honoring the power of your no. A clear no protects your best yes for the people and projects that actually grow with it. Scarcity is not stinginess, it is how value becomes visible. When you are not constantly available, your presence becomes a choice, not a default. In the end, generosity needs a heartbeat. A true gift has a pulse. Give, replenish, give, exhale, inhale. Do not confuse exhaustion with virtue. Do not confuse detachment with strength. Stand in the middle of the paradox and practice a rhythm you can live with. Give like someone you intend to keep. Clench your mind like a fist, and your thoughts slip through your fingers. That is the focus paradox. The more you strain to lock in, the more your attention rebels, skittering to anything but the thing in front of you. You feel it as tight shoulders, shallow breathing, and that frantic inner whisper that says, try harder. But focus does not come from force. It comes from ease. When you push hard, your brain hears a threat. It readies for battle, not for clarity. Your vision tunnels. Your self-talk gets louder, and your attention turns into a nervous spotlight that burns a hole in the page while missing the meaning. It is like squeezing a bar of soap. The tighter the grip, the farther it flies. You try to pin your mind to one spot, and it wriggles away because pressure makes space feel scarce. Focus needs space. It thrives in a mind that is steady, not strangled. So do not fight for focus. Invite it. Give your mind a clear path and a soft landing. Start by saying out loud a single simple intention in plain words. Not a grand goal, just the next small move, like outline the idea or answer the first email. Then reduce it again to a starter step that requires almost no courage. Open the document. Type a messy sentence. Let momentum do the heavy lifting. Soften your body. Unclench your jaw. Unhunch your shoulders. Widen your gaze as if you're taking in the whole room, because a panoramic view signals safety. Breathe in a slow wave through your nose and let your exhale be a little longer than your inhale. This is not ceremony. This is chemistry. Relaxation gives attention permission to stay. Build a gentle container. Work for the length of one song or until a cup of tea cools. Let the boundary be kind, not strict. Strictness awakens the rebel. Kindness ushers you forward. Keep a scrap of paper beside you to catch stray thoughts. When a distraction pops up, do not argue with it. Write it down and promise it later. Your mind will stop shouting when it knows it will be heard. Expect to drift. Drifting is not failure, it is physics. Attention is a puppy. You do not scold a puppy for wandering. You call it back again and again with warmth. That returning is the rep that builds steadiness. When your eyes glaze, take a brief reset. Look far out a window. Stand up and stretch. Sip water, then slide back in. Each gentle return strengthens the signal that this is safe, and safe minds can focus. Here is the secret tucked inside the paradox. Focus is a side effect. It comes from clarity, calm, and small honest steps taken in sequence. Trying to control attention directly is like trying to fall asleep by commanding it. You cannot force it, but you can create the conditions that make it almost inevitable. So loosen the grip. Make the target small, make the body soft. Keep coming back without drama. Hold your hand open and watch focus land there on its own. The harder you chase a yawn, the faster it runs from you. You know that scene. The room is quiet, the clock is louder than it should be. You make a deal with yourself. If you fall asleep now, you get at least a few hours. Then you try, and try. And with every try, your eyes feel more awake. Here's the twist you already feel in your body. Turning rest into a task lights up the same part of you that shows up for deadlines. Effort comes with tension, and tension tells your brain to stay on guard. Psychologically, that pressure keeps alertness alive when what you need is softness. Think of sleep like a shy cat. Call to it. Reach for it. It slips under the couch. Sit still. Make the room calm. Let your attention soften. Eventually it appears, steps quietly onto your lap, and you barely notice the moment it arrived. That is the paradox. Sleep comes when invited, not when chased. Metaphors like this help because they turn a tricky idea into something your senses can understand. So what do you do in that stubborn midnight gap between wanting and getting? Start by changing roles. You are not the enforcer trying to make sleep happen. You are the host, creating a safe place for it to show up. This is a reframe with real power. Not force, but invitation. Not control, but comfort. That shift lowers resistance inside you and makes space for your natural rhythm to take over. Let yourself rest without demanding results. Make comfort the only goal. Feel the weight of your body on the mattress. Notice the rise and fall of your breath, like gentle waves that never ask for effort. If a thought pops up, do not shove it away. Name it softly, like that is planning, that is worrying, that is remembering, and let it drift. When your mind wanders, guide it back to something simple and kind, the feeling of the sheet on your arm, or the warm darkness behind your eyelids. The point is not to win against thoughts, but to make them less interesting than the quiet. If you catch yourself checking the clock, that is a cue to return to hosting. Clocks fuel bargains, and bargains fuel pressure. Tell yourself it is okay to be awake right now. Permission is not surrender. It is how your nervous system learns there is nothing to fight. A calmer body makes better rest possible, and a rested body naturally sleeps. You can also give your mind a low-stakes place to idle. Think through a slow, cozy scene in detail, like straightening a bookshelf or walking a familiar path at dusk. Keep it gentle, unimportant, and repetitive. Not a race, not a plot, just a rhythm your mind can sway to without gripping. And if sleep still takes its time, remember the win is not measured only by whether you drifted off. The win is that you trained yourself to drop the struggle. You practiced staying with comfort. You moved from trying hard to letting be. That is not giving up. That is wisdom. You are teaching your body that night is safe again, and safety is the soil where sleep grows. When you stop chasing the yawn, it stops running. When you stop forcing the quiet finds you. Rest first. Let sleep follow. That is how you step out of the paradox. Grip a bar of soap as hard as you can, and it rockets out of your hands. Memory can be just as slippery. You lunge for a name, a place, that one exact word at the tip of your tongue, and the moment you clamp down, it wriggles away. Then, 10 minutes later, while you are rinsing a cup or tying a shoe, it strolls back in like it never left. This is the memory paradox. The act of trying to remember can shove the answer deeper into the shadows, while relaxing your grip invites it into the light. You have lived it 100 times. You open the fridge and forget why. You meet someone and their name evaporates. You rehearse a line, then blink, and it is gone. The brain is not a filing cabinet. It is more like a crowded party. When you shout for one guest, the room goes quiet, and that guest ducks behind the curtain. When you lower your voice and mingle, they tap you on the shoulder. Why does letting go work? Strain narrows attention. You flood yourself with urgency, and your mind starts scanning the same hallway over and over, but memory is stored in many rooms. When you soften, your attention widens, and the brain starts crossfading between rooms without you micromanaging it. That quiet crossfade is where the answer hides. You do not need a textbook to feel this. You just need to notice how the answer arrives when you reach for something else. Try this the next time a thought won't come. Stop tugging on the rope. Say out loud what you do remember, even if it sounds silly. The movie had rain. The actor wore a red scarf. The scene smelled like autumn. Then leave it. Rinse a dish. Step outside for a few breaths. Touch something cold. Ask your body for help by moving, not forcing. Give your mind a different texture, and it will knit the missing thread while you are not looking. This paradox does not mean you should never focus. Focus is a spotlight. It is brilliant, but it can blind you when you aim it at fog. The trick is rhythm. Focus to gather what you can. Unfocus to let it settle. Squeeze the sponge, then release, so water can flow back in. You can even make tiny rituals for the release. Place the question on a shelf in your mind and tell it, I will be back. Find me when you are ready. It sounds playful because it is. Play is the opposite of strain, and memory loves play. You will notice the same pattern in other corners of life. Try to fall asleep and you stay awake. Try to be interesting and you come off stiff. Try to force a creative idea and you produce noise. The paradox is not punishing you. It is guiding you. Some things bloom when you stop staring at them. So the next time your mind goes blank, do not wrestle with it. Smile at the blankness. Trust the backstage. Shift your attention to something ordinary and kind. Wash your hands. Water a plant. Hum a tune you half remember. Let go, not as a trick to get the answer faster, but as a way of moving with a mind that prefers to offer gifts rather than surrender to grabs. Then listen for the soft knock. There it is, the name you forgot, returning like a friend who knew you would eventually stop chasing. Picture pressing a magic button that promises to give you time, and feeling a tiny tug as time slips away instead. That is the technology paradox. The tools that promise shortcuts often build detours. We download the sleek calendar, and an hour later, we are color-coding, syncing, adjusting notifications, and wondering why the day feels busier. We add a quick email filter, and soon we are curating rules, chasing edge cases, and firefighting the very avalanche we meant to tame. A faster camera app appears, and now every moment competes with editing, exporting, and choosing between 12 filters when the memory only needed one breath. The paradox hides in 4 places. There is the setup cost, that learning curve dressed in excitement. There is the switching cost, the friction of jumping between windows and modes. There is the overload cost, the menu of endless options that swallows decisiveness. And there is the notification tax, those tiny taps on the shoulder that break your concentration and sell it back to you at a premium. Add them together, and the minutes you meant to save scatter like coins on the floor. It is not that technology is the villain. It is that every tool arrives with a shadow, maintenance, updates, integrations, backups, cross-device syncs. Each one is a little chore. At scale, your day becomes a caretaking job for an invisible machine. You are the garden, but you are also the gardener, watering an app that promised to water itself. So how do you step out of the paradox? Start by deciding what only a human should do. Judgment, taste, conversation, presence. Let machines lift the boring weight, but keep your hands on the living parts. Choose defaults that guard your time. Notifications off until proven necessary. One home screen, not a carnival. A single place for notes that opens instantly and asks nothing but words. If a tool cannot be explained in one sentence, it cannot save you time today. Impose constraints that make speed honest. Batch the shallow tasks into a single window of the day, so they stop ambushing the deep work. Set a doorway between worlds. When this focus begins, that feed ends. Try a small daily stretch with no screens at all, a simple walk or a quiet coffee, so your brain remembers what unbroken attention feels like. Measure your tools by net time, not promises. After a week, ask, did this shrink the gap between me and the work, or did it add another trampoline to bounce on? Also, practice subtraction. Every new app must earn its place by replacing 2 habits or 2 old tools. If it cannot win that trade, it stays on the shelf. And when a tool keeps asking for attention, give it exactly that, attention long enough to delete it. The courage to remove is the secret engine of a simpler, faster day. The paradox does not disappear, you outgrow it. Choose fewer, quieter tools. Keep their purpose humble and their footprint small. Then, the time you save is not spent feeding the machine. It is poured back into the life you actually want to live. Let your tools be quiet servants, not noisy landlords of your attention. Picture a person sprinting on a treadmill that spits out dollar bills, and yet they're starving, not for food, but for laughter, for slow mornings, for the warmth of someone's hand that is not holding a phone. That is the money paradox. We chase it so hard that the very things we meant to buy slip through our fingers before we ever feel them. Think about how it starts. You want stability. You want a better place, a safer car, the freedom to say yes. So you put your head down. You say yes to the late nights, the early emails, the just one more project. You convince yourself it is temporary. You'll live later. But later is a moving target that loves to run just one step ahead. The paycheck grows, and so do your expenses, your standards, your circles, expectations. The promotions feel like validation, and they are, but they also carry a leash you barely notice tighten. You miss a dinner here, a game there, the small bedtime conversation, the shared silence on the couch that somehow steadies your heart. You tell yourself you're doing it for them, for the life you promised, and yet what they wanted most was you. There is nothing wrong with money. Money is a tool, and tools build homes and heal stress. The paradox is not money itself. It is what we trade to get it, and how blind we become while we trade. We imagine more money will buy us time, but the chase eats the very hours we planned to reclaim. We imagine more money will buy us love, but the chase often dries up the attention that love drinks to survive. We imagine more money will buy us peace, but the chase can become a noise you carry to bed. So what breaks the spell? Start by naming enough. Not the fantasy of limitless wealth, but a line where essentials are safe and your head can rest. Enough is personal, honest, and grounded in your own values. When you can say enough, you can say no. No to the meeting that steals a memory. No to the upgrade that buys a status point, but sells a weekend. No to measuring your worth by the weight of your wallet. Then decide what is precious and make it heavy in your schedule. A weekly dinner without screens. A walk after work where the pace is set by conversation. A call to someone you deeply love, not while you rush, but while you actually listen. Guard these moments like you guard your income, because they are your income in a different currency. Work hard, yes. Build, yes. But let your ambition be about craft and contribution, not constant comparison. Celebrate money as a good servant and keep it from becoming a jealous master. Keep a little emptiness in your calendar so life can pour something unexpected in. Practice gratitude, which quietly turns what you have into plenty. One day, the treadmill will stop. On that day, you will not count receipts. You will count memories, faces, firsts, lasts, and the easy breath of a life you actually noticed while you were living it. That is wealth. That is the real win. And that is the paradox, solved not by more, but by meaning. Imagine swinging a glass sword. It looks powerful, it flashes, it makes you feel invincible. Then the first real strike lands, and it shatters in your hands. That is the ego paradox. The harder you forge the image of yourself, the more brittle it becomes. Ego says you are your title, your follower count, your bank balance, your reputation. It builds a fortress around those things and calls it strength. But a fortress is only strong until a single stone is pulled from the wall. The layoff, the bad review, the missed shot, the friend who stops calling. When the wall is the self, any crack feels like collapse. Quiet confidence is different. It is a living thing, not a statue. A reed in the storm bends and keeps its roots. An oak that refuses to bend snaps. Ego is oak without give. Confidence is reed with depth. Think about the moments that sting the most. Someone challenges your idea and you feel heat in your cheeks. You win and it tastes like oxygen. Then you lose and it feels like drowning. You scroll, you compare, you tell yourself a story about where you rank, and the story props you up until a single comment knocks it down. That is not strength. That is scaffolding. The paradox is that the strongest people you know rarely tell you how strong they are. They ask questions. They change their minds. They do not need to win every argument because their worth is not built on being right. Their identity is not a glass sword. It is a quiet core that can handle being wrong, being corrected, even being embarrassed, because none of those moments threaten who they really are. So what do you do with your own ego? Start by catching the tiny flinch when you do not know something. Let it surface, then answer with curiosity instead of defense. Say the words, "I could be wrong," more often than feels comfortable. Celebrate the person who points out your mistake because they just saved you from walking further down the wrong road. Turn every correction into a course correction. Ask the naive question you would normally swallow. Speak last when you can. Let others shine. And notice how your light does not dim at all. Share credit in public and take responsibility in private. When praise comes, enjoy it like a warm day and do not try to trap it in a jar. When criticism comes, look for the kernel that can feed you and throw away the shells. Build your identity on things that cannot be taken. Values, effort, kindness, the willingness to learn. Those are not fragile. They do not crack when the score changes. They withstand seasons. The ego paradox will keep testing you. Every time you feel the urge to protect the image, loosen your grip. Trade the glass sword for calloused hands. Bend when the wind blows. The world will still hit you, but you will not break. You will flex, you will learn, and you will rise, quieter than before, stronger than you ever were when you were trying so hard to look strong. Picture this. You finally cross the finish line you've chased for months, and instead of relief, a small voice inside whispers, "What's next?" That whisper is the satisfaction paradox. The moment you get what you want, wanting wakes up again, hungry and curious, tugging you toward the next summit before you even catch your breath. Our minds are built for pursuit. Anticipation drips energy into our veins. We get momentum from the chase, stories from the climb, identity from the striving. Then we arrive. The music fades, the lights come up. The trophy sits on a shelf and turns into a shiny piece of furniture. It's not failure, it's a feature. We are wired to keep moving. Think about the promotion that was supposed to change everything. For a week it does, then it becomes your new normal. Or that perfect phone, the one you researched for days. For a month it's magic. Then you blink and it's just a rectangle you forget on the couch. Even relationships and personal milestones bend to this loop. The first time you hear yes to a dream, your chest buzzes. A little later, you want a bigger yes. So what do you do with a mind that loves the horizon more than the view? You give both their turn. Let the horizon pull you, but learn to land. Make celebration a ritual, not a quick nod. When you reach something, pause long enough for your body to catch up to your story. Say it out loud. I did this. Feed your senses with the proof. Keep the email. Hold the medal. Read the message again. Invite someone into the moment because shared joy anchors memory. Define enough before you start. Not a cage, a checkpoint. Enough for now is a sentence that frees you to feel completion without killing curiosity. When you set a goal, add a closing scene. How will you mark it? What will you allow yourself to feel? Write it, say it, honor it when you arrive. Make room for afterglow. Build a tiny buffer between finishing and starting again. A day, an evening, even a slow walk. That pause is not laziness. It is the bridge where satisfaction has time to settle into gratitude. Shift your spotlight from outcomes to experiences. Wanting is loud about results. Satisfaction grows in process. Ask, what did this teach me? Who did I become? When the answer is a person you like, the wanting that follows feels like growth, not emptiness. Take inventory more often. List what you chased and actually caught. The mind forgets victories while it highlights gaps. Reminding yourself of the path behind you makes the road ahead less frantic and more intentional. Most of all, choose your next want with care. Not just bigger, but deeper. Not more applause, but more meaning. If the aim is richer, not only louder, the paradox softens. You still want, but the wanting feels aligned. You can't escape the pull of more. You can dance with it. Let it point you forward and let it stay quiet long enough for gratitude to speak. Arrive, really arrive, and then go again. The horizon will always move. The view is where you are standing. Here's the weird thing about your brain. It refuses to turn on the lights until you start walking in the dark. We keep waiting for a spark, but the spark shows up after the first step, not before it. That is the motivation paradox. You think you need to feel ready to begin, yet readiness is what beginning creates. Think about every time you delayed something simple. You were waiting to feel different, but feelings are followers. Motion is the leader. The moment you take even a tiny action, your mind whispers, "Look, we are doing it." And suddenly the energy you were waiting for arrives. It is like a door that only opens once you push. No invitation, just a small shove, and it swings. Momentum beats mood. You do not need a grand plan or a perfect morning. You need a starter move so small it is almost silly. Wash one dish. Open the document and write one clumsy sentence. Put on your shoes and stand outside for 1 minute. The action is the ignition, not the reward. Here is why this works. Action creates feedback. Feedback creates clarity. Clarity creates motivation. When you move, you see what is real, not what your mind invented. You feel a tiny win. Your brain marks it as progress, and progress feels good. That feeling is the fuel for the next step. No step, no fuel. It is that simple. If you are thinking, I have tried this and I still quit, remember that friction lives at the start. Instead of promising a marathon of effort, promise a whisper of effort. A 2-minute move. When 2 minutes are done, you either stop with a victory or you keep going, because now the engine is warm. Either way, you win. You become the person who starts. Picture the writer who cannot find the perfect idea. They set a timer for 2 minutes and type the ugliest paragraph possible. Ugly words become raw material. Raw material becomes a page. Motivation arrives late, but it arrives loyal. Or the runner who dreads the workout. They lace up, walk to the mailbox and call it good. Once outside, the body asks for a little more, or the cluttered desk that steals your focus. You do not organize your life. You clear one corner. The corner becomes a lane. The lane becomes a room you want to work in. Do not negotiate with the couch. Make your starter move embarrassingly easy. Pair it with a cue you already do. After your morning coffee, open the file. After you brush your teeth, fill a water bottle. After dinner, set your shoes by the door. You are not chasing motivation. You are training a rhythm. So here is your nudge. Pick one thing you have been avoiding. Shrink it until it takes less than the length of a song. Begin it now. Not because you feel like it, but because action breeds feeling. The spark is not the starting gun. The step is. And once you step, momentum carries you where motivation was too shy to lead. There's a trick the mind plays with joy. It prints tiny price tags on every moment, then charges us double if the moment doesn't match the picture in our head. You feel it when the night you hyped up turns ordinary, and also when a simple walk becomes unforgettable because you expected nothing and got the sky on fire. Expectations are invisible contracts we write with the future. The problem is, the future never signs them. When we demand more, we sharpen the outline of how things should be, and the world, being the world, misses a line or two. That gap is where disappointment lives. Lower the demand, blur the outline, and suddenly life has room to surprise you. Think about your last meal out. If you walked in, already certain it would be the best thing you've tasted all year, the dish had to climb a mountain before it reached your mouth. Every bite was compared to a fantasy. But if you wandered in, hungry and open, even a good, not perfect plate became comfort. The food didn't change. Your contract did. This isn't about pretending to love scraps or shrinking your life into something small. It's about tuning the dial from insistence to curiosity. Expect less from the shape of the outcome. Expect more from your capacity to meet it. That simple pivot flips pressure into presence. When you expect less, tiny wins count as victories and setbacks feel like information instead of indictments. When you expect more, tiny wins feel like not enough, and setbacks feel like proof you are behind. The mind loves shiny promises. It whispers that more will finally feel like enough. But more is a moving doorway. Walk through it and it slides forward. We adjust quickly to upgrades, then raise the asking price on joy. So the thrill fades while the invoice grows. The paradox is that tightening your grip chokes the moment, while loosening it lets the moment breathe. So how do you live this without drifting into apathy? Start by trading predictions for experiments. Instead of, "This must be amazing," try, "Let's see what's here." Notice the relief in your body when you stop forcing the future to perform. Set directions you care about and leave destinations a little fuzzy. Work toward what matters, but give the day permission to be a bit messy. Let a handful of outcomes be allowed, and you'll find momentum where you used to find stress. Count what arrives. If you meet a friend and the conversation isn't life-changing, it can still be warm. If your workout wasn't personal best material, it still moved your blood. If your plan unraveled, maybe it revealed something truer. The point is not to sand off all ambition. It is to refuse the belief that happiness sits on the other side of perfect conditions. Expecting less reopens your senses. Expecting more numbs them. When you release the future from your terms and conditions, you discover that ordinary moments carry a quiet luxury. Give life space to exceed a smaller promise, and it will do it more often. Let the contract expire. Step into your day with soft hands. Joy shows up more when it is not being invoiced. Ever notice how the finish line sprints away the moment you start running toward it? That's the progress paradox, and it sneaks up on anyone who dares to improve. The moment you take a step forward, the world gets bigger, and suddenly you can see 10 more steps you never knew existed. It is not failure, it is sight. Think about the first time you tried something hard. Maybe you set out to get stronger, or to learn a skill, or to build something from nothing. At the start, the path looked simple. A few workouts, a few lessons, a few late nights. Then you moved, and movement revealed details. Now you notice the small muscles you never trained, the tricky grammar you never heard of, the boring tasks behind the glamorous goals. Progress widens your vision like a flashlight turning into sunrise. You can see the dust motes, the cracks, the miles. You are not suddenly behind. You are finally seeing what was there. A runner trains until a single mile becomes easy, then a handful, then many. The first victory should feel like a rival, but it doesn't, because new capacity introduces new standards. A language learner masters basic phrases and suddenly hears the pace of native speakers, the idioms, the humour, the life that speeds past. A promotion lands, and the next rung appears with sharper teeth. This is not your goal drifting away. This is your horizon pulling you forward. Here is the quiet truth. If you are frustrated by how far there is to go, it means your map is expanding. You are doing it right. The last version of you could not even perceive what you see now. The paradox does not punish you. It calibrates you. So how do you live with it without burning out? Start by measuring backward as often as you measure forward. Compare today's capacity to last season's self. Success is not only arrival, it is range. Keep a small ritual that records what you did, not just what remains. A done list sounds simple, but it trains your attention to register, gains your brain instinctively ignores. Celebrate thresholds, not just peaks. The first consistent week, the first awkward conversation in that new language, the first dollar earned from your craft. Those are not small. They are doors you walked through. Define enough for this season, not forever, just now. Infinite improvement is a beautiful game, but you need local victories to feed your spirit. Choose a horizon, then walk the next honest step. Trade perfect plans for visible progress. Remember that comparison is a lens that magnifies what you lack and shrinks what you have. Stand close to your own work. One more thing. Treat progress like a relationship, not a rescue. It will not save you. It will show you. It will show you what matters, what scares you, and what you can become. When the distance reveals itself again, smile. The finish line is not fleeing. It is inviting you to grow eyes for the journey, not just legs for the race. Your thumb is a tiny metronome, keeping time to other people's lives, and yet your heart keeps drifting off beat. You scroll past faces, jokes, victories and tragedies in the span of a minute, and somehow the room you're sitting in grows quieter. That is the strange math of modern life. More connections, less connection. It feels like drinking seawater when you're thirsty. Every gulp promises relief. Every gulp makes you thirstier. The platforms are designed to make you visible, not known. A like is a glance. A view is a doorway no one walks through. We collect tiny signals that say, "I saw you," but rarely the deeper ones that say, "I understand you." And because the stream never stops, we keep dipping in, hoping the next wave brings the warmth of belonging. It brings novelty instead. Novelty is fast. Belonging is slow. Think about the times you've posted something vulnerable and waited. You check again and again. The numbers climb, your chest flickers, but your stomach doesn't settle. That's the paradox. Attention without intimacy, noise without music. Social media gives you the sensation of proximity while keeping your feet on separate islands. You can see everyone and still be unreachable. Part of this is the highlight reel problem. We witness polished moments and assume they are the whole story. Then we compare our behind the scenes to someone else's premiere. You do not notice that you are comparing your Wednesday afternoon laundry to their once-a-year fireworks. The result is a subtle shame, a feeling that your ordinary life is somehow not enough. So you post a little brighter, criticize yourself a little harder, and the distance grows. But there is another part we rarely name. Depth takes courage, and social media rewards speed. Depth asks for silence, for pauses, for messy questions. Speed asks for skimmable answers. Depth wants one person leaning in. Speed wants a crowd glancing by. When speed wins, loneliness follows, because the soul recognizes fast food even when the packaging is beautiful. So what do we do with this paradox? We treat the feed like a doorway, not a destination. Use it to find the people who might matter, then step off the conveyor belt and meet them somewhere slower. Replace a like with a voice note. Swap a comment for a call. Share one unedited thought with a friend who can hold it gently. Let someone see the unremarkable parts of you, the grocery list parts, the unsure parts. That is where real closeness roots itself. Give yourself little rituals that honor presence. Put your phone down while you eat. Take a walk without headphones and notice what your mind asks for when it is not numbed. Tell someone you miss them and be specific about why. Ask a question that cannot be answered with a single line. The point is not to quit everything, it is to choose depth on purpose. Loneliness is not proof that you are broken. It is proof that you are human. Let it guide you back to the slow rooms, the small tables, the imperfect conversations. The world will keep shouting. You can still make a quieter choice. And in that quiet, you might find that the connection you wanted was never measured in followers, but in the few who follow you into the silence and stay. You were one breath from done, but you zoomed in until the pixels looked like problems. The cursor blinked, the brush hovered, the send button waited, and the moment passed. That is the perfection paradox. The more you insist on flawless, the further you drift from finished, and the less joy you allow yourself to feel. Perfection promises safety. If you make it perfect, no one can judge it. If you fix every tiny detail, you will finally feel worthy. But perfection is a moving target. Like the horizon, it keeps stepping back with every step you take. You can spend days smoothing a sentence, months polishing a project, years rehearsing a conversation you never have. Meanwhile, life rewards the people who show up and ship, not the ones who almost did. Think about the times you were proudest. It was not because everything was pristine. It was because you crossed a line. You turned in the draft. You pressed export. You laced your shoes and ran even when your pace was slow. Finished created feedback. Feedback created growth. Growth created joy. Perfect never entered the room. The paradox deepens because perfect kills the very thing that could make your work better. Iterations. When you finish, you learn. When you hide, you only imagine learning. A rough first version teaches more than a brilliant masterpiece that lives only in your head. The show-up muscle is built by repetition, not by waiting for an ideal you. So how do you escape the trap? Start by naming good enough before you begin. Define the minimum that would count as done. 1 page, not a book. 1 take, not a symphony. 1 honest conversation, not a grand speech. Trade flawless for faithful. Faithful to the purpose, the message, the moment. Give yourself a small runway and a short timer. The heart works best with a beat. When the perfection voice starts listing every flaw, answer with order and sequence. First finish, then improve. First submit, then revise. First share, then refine. Put your ego in the passenger seat and let momentum drive. The second version cannot exist until the first one does. That is not a slogan. It is physics. Remember that people do not fall in love with perfect. They fall in love with true. The cracks let light in. The missed note proves a human is singing. The slightly crooked line says, a person, not a machine, cared enough to draw. You are not a sculpture to be admired at a distance. You are a verb. You get better by moving. If you want a small dare, try this. Pick one thing you have been polishing to death. Give yourself 1 hour. In that hour, finish the smallest complete version you can and share it with one person who wants you to win. Feel the click of done. That click is a door. Walk through it again tomorrow. Perfection will still whisper. Let it. The paradox loses power the moment you choose progress. Finish, learn, enjoy. Then, if you must, make it better. Your brain is not a buffet. It gets tired before dessert. The more trays you stack, the less you taste. That is the strange thing about choice. Pile enough options on your plate, and suddenly you are full of uncertainty and starving for direction. You keep scrolling, keep comparing, keep chasing the best, and end up choosing nothing at all. You know the feeling. You open a streaming app for a quick escape, and 20 minutes later, you are still auditioning trailers. You walk into a supermarket and stare at a wall of granola frozen by flavors that start to sound like paint chips. Even big moments start to blur. Jobs, cities, partners, paths. When the list grows longer, your energy grows thinner. The paradox is simple to say and exhausting to live. More freedom can trap you. It is not weakness. Your brain pays a toll for every decision. Even small choices chip away at your focus until your mind grabs the easiest exit. That exit might be autopilot. It might be delay dressed as research. It might be the warm safety of doing nothing and calling it waiting for clarity. But clarity rarely arrives once you are empty. It usually shows up after you move. Here is the twist. Constraints create breathing room. A small menu can feel like a hug. A short list can feel like a path. When you shrink the field, you expand your power. Do it on purpose. Pre-decide the arenas that matter. Choose a handful of go-to meals, outfits, and routines so your energy is saved for the decisions that change your life. When it is time to choose, narrow fast. Pick 3 options and eliminate, not accumulate. Ask one clean question. Which choice moves me one step closer to who I want to be next year? If all 3 work, flip an imaginary coin and listen to your gut reaction. Relief hints at the answer. Give your choices a time boundary. If it is small, choose in a few breaths. If it is big, choose by the end of the week. Put your deadline somewhere you can see. Perfection cannot live on a schedule, but progress can. Aim for good enough now, with room to improve later. That is not settling. That is strategy. Most doors do not slam. They creak. Adjust as you go. I watched a friend spin on job offers for months. He was waiting for the mythical perfect role, the one that would guarantee no regret. The search became its own job, and still he felt behind. Then he built a tiny fence. He chose one city, one skill he wanted to deepen, and one leader he wanted to learn from. Within a day, the decision felt obvious. He still had doubts, but he also had momentum. That is the trade you want. Choice fatigue whispers that the safest move is no move. The truth is kinder. Decide smaller. Decide sooner. Decide again when you learn. Limit becomes leverage, and motion becomes clarity. Freedom is not the width of your options. It is the strength of your commitment to the ones that matter. The first sip is magic. The second is normal. By the third, you are already reaching for something sweeter. That's the strange math of wanting. You take a step forward, and the horizon politely steps back. You earn the thing you swore would be enough, and somehow enough expands by just a little. You know the feeling? A new job title, a nicer place, more attention. For a day or two, your chest lifts. You sleep easier. Then a quiet voice wonders what would happen if you pushed again. It is not greed, it is gravity. Desire stretches to fit its new container. Psychologically, part of this is simple. We get used to what repeats. Our brains adapt to the reward and dim the volume over time. It is called habituation, the tendency to respond less to what we have seen before. That is why the same achievement feels like a firework the first night and a porch light a week later. The growth of desire paradox is not a failure of character. It is a feature of a human nervous system built to keep moving. So we chase. We call it progress. We stack goals like stair steps and promise ourselves a final landing that never quite appears. The trap is not the wanting. It is believing that relief waits only on the far side of the next win. When relief keeps moving, exhaustion is inevitable. Here is the flip. Instead of letting every gain grow a new craving, let it grow your capacity to savor. Not more, but deeper. Not higher, but truer. That shift sounds small until you try it. Then it changes how you choose, work, and rest. It is a reframe that turns the usual chase into a better path. Picture this. You finally buy the better phone. Before you scroll into the next desire, pause. Name what this changes for your day, out loud. Maybe it makes photos of your friends sharper. Maybe calls with family drop less. When you anchor the gain to what you value, it feeds meaning, not appetite. The same with achievements. Celebrate the promotion, yes, but also capture the craft that got you there, the patience in hard meetings, the hours you practiced the unglamorous parts. When you honour the process, the reward becomes a mirror, not a mirage. There is also a boundary to draw. Every more costs something: time, attention, presence. Ask what you are willing to trade before you chase. If the trade would hollow out the parts of life you are trying to protect, the paradox is waving a red flag. Choose smaller but richer. Choose fewer but fuller. None of this means abandoning ambition. It means changing its fuel. Ambition that depends on the next hit will always be thirsty. Ambition that grows your skill, your relationships, your integrity. This kind satisfies in the middle of the work, not just at the finish line. Let the first sip be magic again. Let the second still be enough. Let the third invite gratitude instead of hunger. Every gain will try to create a new craving. You cannot stop that entirely, but you can decide what grows faster, the appetite, or your ability to appreciate what you already hold. Choose depth over more, and the horizon stops running away. You sit down, list 3 small good things, and out of nowhere, your chest tightens. You were aiming for gratitude, and somehow you ended up face to face with everything that used to hurt. That jolt is confusing. It can make you think you are doing it wrong, but it is actually the sign you are doing it right. Here is the twist most people miss. Gratitude is not about denying pain. It is about changing the frame around it, not erasing the past, but giving the present more light. When you tilt the frame, the picture shifts. Old shadows show up in the new brightness, and that contrast can sting. Psychologically, this works because attention is trainable, and where you place attention changes what you feel and remember in the moment. The discomfort is not a flaw in gratitude, it is a byproduct of seeing clearly. Think about a simple night routine. You open a journal and write, "I am grateful for the way the barista remembered my name." A warm memory, then a flicker, a time when you felt invisible at work. Your mind steps into that hallway, touching the old bruise. You are tempted to slam the book shut. Instead, you take a breath. You let the old scene be there without making it the headline. Then you finish your list. You sleep easier than the night before. Or imagine a friend texts, "Proud of you for pushing through today." You reply, "Thank you." And a second later, you hear a voice from years ago saying you were not enough. Gratitude did not summon that voice. It unmuted the room you already carry. If you listen closely, there is a second voice too, the one that says, "Look how far you came." That duet, ache and appreciation, is the paradox. It hurts and it heals. The shift is simple, not easy. Name the ache without arguing with it. Then name the gift beside it. Not toxic positivity, but honest pairing. I lost something, and I gained perspective. I was overlooked, and I still grew skills. I was afraid, and I am still here. Psychologically, this reframe lowers resistance because it validates the real while inviting a new story to sit alongside it. You are not pretending the wound was pleasant. You are choosing the meaning it will carry forward. If you want a small practice, try this line. Because this was hard, I now appreciate. Fill in the blank with something true. Because that season was lonely, I now appreciate small invitations. Because that failure burned, I now appreciate how feedback feels like fuel. Gratitude turns pain into context, not identity. In time, the sting dulls. Not because you forget, but because the present grows heavier than the past. You notice more, you savor more, and the old hurt keeps shrinking against the size of a life that keeps moving. That is the paradox at work. It does not require you to be cheerful. It asks you to be honest, and then a little brave. Let the ache walk with you. Let gratitude choose the direction. That is not denial. That is freedom. Press your finger toward a thorn you have not touched yet, and your mind will swear the entire rosebush is dangerous. That is the memory of pain paradox at work. We remember pain as worse when we fear it, but once we live through it, the memory softens, as if the sting fades faster than the story we told ourselves beforehand. Think about the dentist chair. The night before, your jaw already aches in your imagination. Every sound of the drill you have never heard yet becomes a siren. Fear turns the unknown into a megaphone. Then the appointment ends. You sit up, realize you handled it, and your mind quietly edits the file. It was uncomfortable, sure, but not the end of the world. The same happens with a cold plunge, a tough conversation, or the first time you step onto a stage. Beforehand, your body rehearses disaster. Afterward, your memory rehearses survival. Fear is loud because it is trying to keep you safe. It grabs a paint roller, not a fine brush. It covers the future in thick colour, so you do not miss a threat. But the moment you pass through the experience, your brain collects new data. You coped, you endured, maybe you even grew. The ending rewrites the middle. Relief is a gentle editor. It trims the worst edges and files the lesson where you can reach it later. This has a cost. If you only trust the memory formed in fear, you avoid what might help you. You skip the workout because last time you remember only the burn, not the calm afterward. You dodge the breakup talk because your memory is just a reel of heartbreak, not the freedom on the other side. You turn down a chance to speak because you recall shaking hands, not the applause that followed. The preview becomes a prison. The aftermath holds the key. So how do you work with this paradox? Start by naming it as it happens. Say, this is the fear voice, trying to cash a check the future may not write. Time the discomfort. Tell yourself, I can breathe through this for a few minutes. Shrink the frame so your mind cannot paint a mural of catastrophe. Step in on purpose. Often the first seconds hurt the most, then your body adjusts. When you finish, mark the ending. Make a tiny ritual, a walk outside, a slow inhale, a text to yourself that says, I did it. You are tagging the memory with survival, so next time the recall includes the part where you were capable. Tell the story sooner rather than later. Put your experience into words while relief is still warm. What you say becomes what you remember. Shift the focus from the spike of pain to the arc you travelled. I was afraid. I did it. I learned. That is the shape your memory can carry forward without dragging you backward. When the next thorn looks sharp, ask the future version of you for advice. That self will smile and say, it stings, then it passes, and you will be proud you touched the rose. Fear inflates the price. Survival gives the discount. Step in, not because pain vanishes, but because your memory becomes kinder once you do. I once caught my reflection in a shop window and thought, that person looks humble. The thought was so quick and so clean it felt like a compliment. Then the ground gave way, because how humble can you be if you are admiring your humility like a new jacket? This is the strange gravity of the humility paradox. The moment you look directly at it, it slips through your fingers. Humility works like a star you see better from the corner of your eye. The second you stare it down, it winks out, and all you are left with is the echo of your own self-congratulation. I learned this at a tiny celebration where someone thanked me for helping. I nodded, smiled, and told myself, stay small. But a warm puff of pride drifted in anyway, whispering, look at you, resisting the spotlight. That whisper was the giveaway. Humility does not narrate itself. It just does the work. It listens longer than it speaks. It asks better questions than it answers. The moment it headlines your inner monologue, poof, it has turned into performance. That does not mean you need to pretend you are nothing. Humility is not shrinking until you disappear. It is right-sizing. It is seeing your place in the web of people and time and luck, and recognizing that your part matters, but it is still a part. It is standing in a forest and realizing the tree you are is real and rooted, just not the whole forest. Notice how children do something remarkable with a kind of unself-conscious ease. They make a sandcastle, show you, and then go back to digging, because the digging is the point. Humility keeps you in the digging. It keeps you curious. The question is always louder than the applause. So what do you do when you catch yourself feeling proud of being humble? You do not scold yourself. You smile at the irony. You exhale. You notice the temptation to polish an invisible badge that no one can see. And then you return to the task, to the person in front of you, to the thread you can hold that helps the whole fabric stay together. You can let gratitude be the bridge. Gratitude points you outward. It reminds you who taught you, who opened doors, who took a risk on you. Say thank you to them in your mind or with your voice, and watch how the need to pose fades. Curiosity is another bridge. Ask one more sincere question. Listen for the answer without planning your response. When you do that, the self quietly steps aside and the moment becomes bigger than you. There will still be slip-ups. Your mind will keep trying to pin a medal to itself. That is human. The trick is not to make war on the ego, but to give it something better to hold: service, attention, craft, care. Humility is not a possession. It is a practice. It breathes in and out. It forgets itself and remembers the work. If you notice you are humble today, let that be your bell. Hear it, smile, set the badge down, and walk back into the room as a learner. Humility will find you again when you're busy doing the next right thing. Ever tried to catch a closing door with your foot, balance a coffee, and pretend everything is fine only because asking for help felt like dropping your armor? That tiny refusal seems noble for a moment. Then your coffee spills, your foot gets crushed, and your day bends under a weight you chose to carry alone. That is the help paradox. Asking can feel like weakness, yet refusing quietly makes you weaker. Strength is not how long you can hold your breath underwater. It is how quickly you choose to surface. Think about the gym. Muscles do not grow by pretending the weight is light. They grow when you choose the rack, ask for a spotter, and push better, not just harder. Life works the same way. A cast is not a confession that a bone failed. It is a tool that lets healing do its job. Help is a cast for hard moments. I once watched a friend launch a small project and wear the hero costume. Early mornings, late nights, polite smiles, no favours. When the cracks showed, they tightened the mask and kept going. The work suffered, then their health, then the joy that started it all. One day they asked a colleague for an hour. That hour turned into clearer decisions, smoother systems, and a project that finally breathed. The only difference was a sentence: I could use your help. Pride whispers that help is a debt. Reality shows it is an exchange. People like to contribute. It gives meaning, connection, and shared momentum. When you refuse, you deny them a chance to matter. When you ask well, you give them a role in a story they want to join. Ask well by being specific. Name the task, the time, and why you chose them. I admire your eye for detail. Could you look at this for 15 minutes and tell me what feels off? Offer an easy out so it never feels like a trap. If now is not good, I totally understand. This keeps dignity on both sides. Follow with reciprocity, not as a ledger, but as a culture. Let me know how I can make your week lighter too. That simple cycle turns help from a rescue into a rhythm. Fear of rejection is real, but silence is guaranteed rejection, and it is the one you give yourself. Let people surprise you. Also learn to receive without shrinking. When someone hands you a rope, do not apologize for holding on. Say thank you clearly. Acknowledge the relief and put that relief to work. Your future self is counting on your current self to make smarter alliances. Here is the paradox's magic. The moment you ask, your world gets bigger. New eyes see new paths. New hands move old obstacles. New energy returns to the things only you can do. You did not lose strength. You redirected it. So pick one small place today where you are pretending the door is not closing. Ask for a hand before it slams. Not to be saved, but to move farther together. The bravest words are often the shortest. Help. Thank you. Your turn. A strange thing happens the moment your mouth opens to teach. Your brain finally listens. You think you understand the idea sitting quietly in your head, but the second you try to explain it to someone else, your thoughts line up, argue, and either collapse or click into place. That is the teaching paradox. We believe mastery comes first, but again and again it shows up second, trailing the courage to explain. Picture it. You have studied for hours, convinced the concept is yours. Then a friend asks, "So how does it work?" Suddenly the edges blur. You reach for the right words, discover a gap, and feel a twinge of panic. Good. That discomfort is the door. Teaching forces your brain to move from fuzzy recognition to precise expression. It takes the shape of your understanding and holds it to the light. When you explain, you must choose which details matter and create a path from confusion to clarity. You are pushed to simplify without distorting, to compare, to give examples, to anticipate where someone might stumble. In doing that, you find out where you would have stumbled too. The mind loves to be flattered by recognition, to say, "I know this." Teaching refuses the flattery. It demands proof. There is another secret in this paradox. Speaking the idea aloud is a kind of stress test. Your memory retrieves, recombines, and repackages the knowledge in real time. That effort lays down stronger traces. You are not just repeating information, you are reconstructing it. And that reconstruction is what makes the learning stick. The more angles you explain from, the more sturdy your understanding becomes. So how do you use this without waiting to be the expert? Begin where you are. Explain a messy version to a friend, a colleague, or an empty chair if no one is around. Talk your way through the problem and notice every spot you rush past. Those are your missing steps. Go back, fill them in, then try again in plainer language. Write a short note as if you were helping someone half as experienced as you. If you are brave, invite questions that make you uncomfortable. Every question is a compass needle, pointing to the edges of what you do not know yet. Do not wait for perfect. Teaching is not the victory lap after mastery. It is the training ground for it. The best teachers are not people with all the answers, but people who keep refining their answers in public. They ask, "Did that make sense?" They adjust. They return the next day with a cleaner metaphor and a stronger thread to follow. In teaching, you enact the very clarity you seek. Remember this when you feel the urge to postpone sharing until you are ready. Ready is a mirage. The path to ready is the attempt to explain. If the idea matters, do not tuck it away for later. Speak it, sketch it, test it on real ears. You will feel the friction, and with it, the transformation. Teach it to own it. What if the key to feeling wild and free is the least glamorous thing you can imagine, a routine? It sounds backwards, like putting wings on a brick and expecting it to fly. But here is the twist. When you choose your habits on purpose, your days stop being a tug of war, and you start moving like a dancer who knows the steps so well they can improvise without thinking. Freedom is not the absence of structure. Freedom is the presence of the right structure. Think about a blank page. Total freedom. And yet most people freeze. Give that same person a prompt, a theme, a time window, and suddenly ideas appear. Limits lift the fog. A routine is a limit that bends toward your goals. It is a fence that keeps your focus from wandering off, so your energy can actually go somewhere. Without a routine, every morning is a negotiation. What should I do first? Where do I start? That tiny debate steals attention before the day even begins. With a routine, the first moves are already decided. You wake, you do the ritual, and momentum shows up on time. It is not about stacking more tasks. It is about lowering friction so your mind can do the work that matters. Consider a musician practicing scales. It is repetitive. It is strict. But when the show starts, those hours turn into freedom on stage. The same is true for a writer who sits down at the same hour, with the same drink and the same playlist. That sameness becomes a signal to the brain. This is where we make. This is where we think clearly. The ritual creates a doorway. Walk through enough times and your focus meets you there. A routine also protects your spontaneity. It sounds strange, but it is true. If your essentials are handled by habit, your day has open space that is no longer crowded with little decisions. You can say yes to a last-minute invite without your life falling over. You can chase an idea at noon because your morning already carried the weight. Structure is what keeps your unknown moments light. Start small. Choose one anchor action in the morning and one at night. Keep them simple. Tie them to things you already do. After you wake, drink water and read a page. Before you sleep, write a single line about the day and set out what you need for tomorrow. These are not rules to obey. They are signals to your future self. Repeat them long enough, and you will not have to remember. Your day will remember for you. The paradox is that discipline is a kind of compassion. You are not punishing yourself. You are removing friction for the person you will be later. Each repeated step says, I will make it easier for you. And when things get messy, the routine is a rope you can hold. It keeps you connected to what matters when everything else tries to pull you off course. Choose your routines like an artist chooses a frame, not to box the picture in, but to make the picture visible. Your life is the art. The frame is how it shines.